Chapter 227. The cannon gunners had huge hand cannons on their backs. The demon hunters had magical crossbows, and the shield bearers had mini shields. Almost all the professionals were equipped with various magical equipment. This was an eye-opener for the players, and the popularity of the live broadcast increased. Fatty and the rest wanted to make a good impression with some bosses. They wanted to stay in the Empire and not return to the City of Dawn. Unfortunately, the high-grade professions on the deck were all indifferent to him. The cannon gunner was an aloof person. He only spoke to them because he found them interesting. After that, he ignored them. The professionals were there to kill devils to earn money. How could they have the time to entertain children? If they were intermediate professionals in the Empire, they should be students in the Capital College. Even if they went out to train, they would be accompanied by their teachers. Under normal circumstances, only advanced students could go to the Moonlight Forest to train. After the Darkness invasion, the news of the Moonlight Forest spread. Many professionals from small places came to the Empire. They were curious about everything. They thought that being intermediate or advanced was impressive. But when they came here, they were beaten up. Therefore, the professionals in the Empire also liked to scare these foreigners. How long can a war in the Moonlight Forest last? A professional who had nothing in his hands suddenly sighed. The young cannon gunner smiled. Who knows? The Moonlight Elves have been fighting for the past 7 days. There have been nearly 1 million casualties. They can't stop Cronus and the Devil Army, so they asked for reinforcements. As for how long can the war last? The key is to see if Cronus, who has just become a sage, can resist the joint attack of 3 sages. I don't think so, someone said guiltily. The cannon gunner continued. Who says he can't? When Kronos had fallen into the darkness, he had killed a saint with a sneak attack. Now, there were only 2 saints left in the Moonlight Elves. However, if they were really a match for Kronos, they would not have been forced to retreat. In my opinion, even if the Mercenary Guild sends a sage to fight 3 against 1, they won't be able to gain anything. I heard that Cronus can summon a King of Darkness at any time. The best thing for the Moonlight Elves to do now is to retreat from the Moonlight Forest and preserve their strength. Otherwise, they will be finished sooner or later. How could they retreat just like that? The Moonlight Forest is their home. Back in the Second Era, the Moonlight Forest was the ancestral land of the Moonlight Elves. Now that the Darkness invasion has destroyed their ancestral land, do you think the proud elves will let it go so easily? A temple knight sneered. Then he continued. Moreover, if Cronus leads the devils to gain a foothold in the Moonlight Elves, where else can the Moonlight Elves go? There are not many good places left for them in the legendary continent. As the players listened to their conversation, they felt more and more like they were not from the same world. In their eyes, even if the Moonlight Elves were completely occupied by the Dark World, it would not affect them much. They also gradually discovered that the professionals of the human empires seemed to have very strong confidence. Angry Fatty hesitated for a long time before asking, why didn't you get more human saints to surround and kill Kronos? As soon as he said that, the deck was a little quiet. However, the cannon gunner looked at them and said with a smile, you have to pay to help. Otherwise, why would we help him? Do you think that we are here to work for free? We are all hired. The Moonlight Elves have even lost their national treasury. How can they find another saint to help? Pay. A broadcaster was a little confused. He could not help but ask. In this life and death situation, the Dark World is already invaded. As a race of light, shouldn't we join forces? Ha ha. In this life and death situation, are you kidding? The human empires have never fallen. So what if the periphery of the legendary continent has fallen? Do you know what life and death is? The empires are the foundation of the human race. One more thing. No matter where you come from, you have to remember that you are also a part of the human race. The relationship between the elves and the humans is not as good as you think. The Blackleaf Elves and the Snow Elf Saints did not come to help. Why should we help them for free? Fatty and the others were speechless. They just looked at each other blankly and did not continue to speak. They listened quietly and wanted to find the reason why the professionals of the human empires were so confident. However, after their interruption, the professionals did not talk much. Meanwhile, two devils suddenly walked out of the teleportation portal. It was pitch black in front of them. There were many exquisite and beautiful clothes around them. The entrance to the teleportation portal was in the wardrobe. At this moment, Moses was the leader. He looked at the magical barrier on the wardrobe door. He gently waved his hand, and the barrier faded. Both of them pushed open the wardrobe and walked out at the same time. Then, the magical barrier returned to its original state. In front of them was a bedroom that had not been occupied for a long time. The room was very big. The walls were originally covered with green vines and even flowers, but now they had withered. This seemed to be Annie's former residence in the palace. At this moment, Moses used his mental strength to connect with William and said, "Use your mind to speak. Follow me. Don't wander around." Understood. William was not stupid. He looked out the window. The sky was dark, and there were devils flying everywhere. The current Moonlight Elven Kingdom had become the lair of the Dark faction. At this time, they would definitely die. But William still said worriedly, "I have Annie's hair here. Can you track her?" "Hair? I can't use magic to track her here. I will definitely be discovered by the devils. But I have just divined her location. Don't worry, she is definitely much safer than the two of us." Moses pushed open the bedroom door. The palace was not filled with groups of devils. It could even be said that there were almost no devils in the palace. Those devils and dark creatures basically lived outside the palace. At this moment, William slightly sighed. Cronus seems to be a little nostalgic. Moses laughed in the mental link. "We have already sunk into the Dark faction. Who is nostalgic for?" "Myself. Every king who has sunk into the Dark faction is lonely." When the two of them walked inside the palace, they did not encounter any accidents. The entire palace had not suffered much damage. Many places were extremely intact. William quietly followed them, and they walked for about 20 minutes. Moses stopped walking. William also stopped walking. Tens of seconds later, Moses continued to walk forward and quicken his pace. After a few minutes, William noticed that Moses' footsteps slowed down again. He could not help but ask, "What did you encounter?" "A devil lord. I sense that a bedroom belongs to a devil lord. He has just left. It seems that there are devils in the Elven Palace, but low-level devils are not fit to live here." Moses exhaled. The situation in the palace was far more dangerous than he had imagined. He had led William around for a long time. It was not that they could not walk out directly. Both of them had devil bodies, so they would not be exposed. But he discovered that there were many devils patrolling and investigating the vicinity of the palace. If they really found out that he couldn't say anything, then he would be dead. So he tried his best to choose a place where no one was investigating. But even so, William could not help but look at Moses a few more times. This guy was capable. This was the enemy's lair. The legendary Devil Lord could detect them in advance, but he could not detect Moses and William. Gosh, how awesome was Moses? At this moment, William could not help but ask, how many types of magic are there in the world? Moses had never said that he was a comprehensive mage, and William had never mentioned it either. But now, Moses said without hesitation, 108 types. William widened his eyes. How can there be so many? Aren't there only elemental, space-time, and mental mages? Moses did not explain. William suddenly sighed. I reckon that even the Lord of Magic doesn't know so many types of magic, even if he's the Lord of Magic. Moses cannot help but sneer. Lord of Magic? Is he worthy of being the Lord of Magic? He's just a despicable and shameless villain. Originally, there were no terms such as priest, summoner, druid, clergy, or warlock. All magic professionals were called mages. But what about the Lord of Magic? Because he only knew a few main types of magic, and he had obtained a godhood, he did not know many other types of magic. That was why there were various types of mages. But all types of magic were created by the goddess of magic. If the goddess of magic had not perished and the magic net had not collapsed, the mages would not have fallen to this state. How could there be so many types of magic? Lord of Magic? Who is he? When Moses talked about the Lord of Magic, his tone was unusually angry. He even seemed to be rolling up his sleeves and ready to fight. William did not dare to talk anymore. Who knew why Moses had escaped from the magic sanctuary, but he still managed to get some information out of him. How many types of magic do you know? Oh, Moses only said one word. Suddenly, he narrowed his eyes and looked at William. William kept his mouth shut and did not dare to say anything. But he continued to shout in his heart. All types? All? Gosh! Besides the goddess of magic, he should be the only comprehensive mage in the 9 continents. This was what he had said himself. But what was the relationship between Moses and the goddess of magic? Was he an illegitimate child? That was right. Could he be the reincarnation of the goddess of magic? When William thought of this, he could not help but glance at the burly Moses. He had an ugly devil's face. If he was the reincarnation of the goddess of magic, he would not tolerate this body. Chapter 228. Time passed quickly. Both of them stopped in the palace. Moses discovered that the lair of the dark faction was not as easy to break through as he had imagined. The inside of the palace was a relatively safer place. But once they left the palace, they would encounter groups of devils. This place was not like the small battlefield in the southeastern region. The devils were the main force of the war. At the same time, Moses discovered a legendary elf who had been corrupted. He had just returned to the palace with injuries. He did not know where he had gone to recuperate. Annie seems to know some secret passages in the palace. She went out, but we're trapped here. Moses felt a headache coming on. Hey, look at that. William ignored him. He stopped in his tracks and looked at a building that seemed to be heavily guarded. Moses pondered for 2 seconds. Then, he looked at William and said, "The treasure vault of the Moonlight Elves." He wanted to ask if William was here to save Annie or to take advantage of her misfortune. Why didn't you look for anything else? Why did you look for the elven treasure vault here? It was at least a few thousand meters away from the treasure vault. How was he supposed to get there if he couldn't cast any spells? But William could no longer control his desire. He confirmed the location and led Moses into an empty room. He gently closed the door and brought Moses into a narrow storage room. William stretched out his left hand and raised his head. "I'll take off my gloves and dig a tunnel. Can you help me conceal my aura?" Moses suddenly remembered that William had the left hand of the thunder god. Oh, it was no wonder that William had many good items. Gold coins, silver coins, and copper coins piled up into the small gold vault. William had used the left hand of the thunder god to steal items. I don't know if thunder god will kill you if he finds out. Moses hesitated for a while before nodding. It's not a big problem, but you can't be too far away from me. Otherwise, you'll have to put on your gloves immediately. There are many experts in the Moonlight Forest. If you're not careful, you'll be detected by others. That's good. Shall we go to the treasure vault to take a look? Or shall we dig a tunnel and escape? William licked his lips. If he had come alone, he would not have any designs on the elven treasure vault. After all, this wasn't a small dukedom. Apart from magic barriers and walls, there was nothing else for defense. This was the palace of the Moonlight Elves. The treasury was so secure that even a legend would have a hard time breaking into it. But the legend did not have the left hand of God. There was not a single all-element enchanter in the legend realm. The moment the two of them joined hands, what treasure vault couldn't he rob? Moses pondered for a long time again. In the end, he couldn't resist the temptation in his heart. He said extremely coldly, "I'll accompany you to the treasure vault to take a look. If it doesn't work, we'll dig elsewhere. Let's go." William glanced at him. "You still want to accompany me to take a look? If you don't snatch my things, I'll be counting on you." You said it so expressionlessly. Are you not poor? After this wave of darkness invasion, I will die of poverty. Moreover, to His Royal Highness, leaving the undamaged treasury to a dark creature was far better than taking it away. William forcefully stopped his transformation. Moses immediately cast a black magic barrier to trap him. It was guaranteed that not a single trace of his aura would leak out. William took off his gloves. Thunder battle energy filled the surface of his body, and his left hand turned into a palm made of thunder. His left hand dug into the enchanted floor. Swoosh! It was as if he was cutting tofu. He dug through the floor of the elven palace without any obstruction. Then he continued digging. During the darkness invasion, he didn't unleash the power of the left hand of the thunder god. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to break the sword energy. No matter how powerful the advanced devil was, he could kill him with one hand. But he didn't dare to reveal it. He stored the excavated bricks and soil in a space ring. When the two of them entered the tunnel, he released them to block the tunnel. Time passed very quickly. Moses kept urging him to continue digging. When the two of them were 20 meters deep into the ground, Moses removed the magic barrier from William's body and said, "Don't worry about your aura leaking out. The ground is the best means of protection. It's very difficult to probe deep underground. Even for sages, it's very exhausting. Unless there's an earth element mage using magic to explore the ground. But since I'm here, we don't have to worry about the earth element mage discovering us." When William heard this, he didn't say anything. Of course, he knew that hiding underground was the best means of defense. The two of them continued to dig the tunnel. They didn't dare to move too fast, as they were afraid of alerting the devils above. But when Moses saw William take out the compass, he had the urge to beat William up. Moses suddenly realized that he didn't understand William well enough. William wasn't as pure and kind as he had imagined. This lad's ability to do bad things seems to be stronger than his father, Moses muttered to himself. William didn't hear it. Even if he heard it, he couldn't be bothered. Since Annie had left the palace, it meant that she had no intention of dying. This meant that Annie had returned to the Moonlight Forest to participate in the war. She wasn't there to talk to her brother, Cronus. William didn't have to worry about her safety. If there were no accidents, Old Band should have met Annie by now, and he was protecting her closely. Furthermore, Annie had a special status in the Moonlight Forest. Her mother's clan was very powerful among the Moonlight Elves. Annie was a member of the royal family of the Moonlight Elves. Even though she was a princess, she wasn't a prince. But when the enemy invaded and the king betrayed his race, the princess who had left her homeland returned to help stabilize the people. This would definitely boost the morale of the people. But there were people who welcomed her, and there were people who didn't. Those who didn't welcome her were her brothers and sisters. Millions of Moonlight Elves were stationed at the temporary camp in the east of the Moonlight Forest. One of the huge tree houses was used as a temporary meeting room. Second Prince Levins was sitting at the head of the table. He looked at his sister, who had come from afar. He was expressionless and said coldly, "You came from the Blackleaf Forest without any reinforcements. What's the use of coming alone?" "I just want to help," Annie replied in the same indifferent tone. I asked you to go to the Blackleaf Forest for a marriage alliance. But you didn't go to the Dark Night City. Instead, you went to the border of the Blackleaf Forest to the lousy City of Dawn. What a joke. Sorry, I don't like those people." Annie squinted her eyes and replied stubbornly, Yes. We can fight to the death for our race. But you gave up on the Blackleaf Elves for your own sake. Instead, you went to find a half-elf with a dirty bloodline. How dare you trust a half-elf race that goes back on its words? If he knew that you were here, he wouldn't have the courage to chase after you, Levins said sarcastically. He wasn't polite at all. If Annie had brought stronger reinforcements, he would have given her some face. But she was alone? What was this called? Was this a power struggle? Originally, Annie was far away from home. Her mother's people had no one to rely on. Some of them had started to rely on Levins. But when Annie returned, those people suddenly had a backbone and were no longer relying on Levins. How could Levins accept this? Annie was about to open her mouth to say something. A legendary male elf said calmly, "It's up to the elves to like others." How old is Annie? She's not an adult yet. Are you crazy? Or have you abandoned the pride of the Moonlight Elves? You want to be a king? Useless. Levins forced himself to swallow his anger. The legendary elf in front of him was called Anrio. He was a top expert in the line of Annie's mother. Even though Levins was the second prince, he didn't dare to do anything in the face of such an existence. Especially after Cronus' betrayal. Many elves didn't trust the princes of the royal family. They didn't respect the royal bloodline as much as they used to. But at this moment, a saint looked at Anrio and snorted. The second prince will become the elven king in the future. Don't forget the respect you deserve. Is it just because of Kronos' betrayal that you can be so rude? The second elder is right. But it's hard to say who will be the next elven king. How can a petty prince who doesn't know right from wrong become the Moonlight Elven King? Andrew was not polite. The saint in front of him was from the same family as the second prince. It would be strange if he didn't speak up for the second prince. Then Andrew continued, I think the third prince is not bad. The third prince noticed the unfriendly gaze of the second prince and was stunned. What does this have to do with me? I didn't say a word. Andrew, if you really want to support me, why don't you do it secretly? Isn't this way of diverting attention too shameless? I'm not a fool. In the conference room of the large treehouse, one saint, 16 legendary. The rest were princes and princesses with the royal bloodline. There were no outsiders. There was a great elder, but he was not here. But because there were no outsiders, the internal and external troubles of the Moonlight Elves had completely erupted. The betrayal of the current Elven King, Cronus, had made many princes and princesses want to become the new Elven King, if not for the fact that their archenemy was in the palace. Even if this group of people did not fight, they would not sit down and negotiate obediently. In particular, the two saints of the Elven race and the mercenary guild's reinforcements could not defeat Kronos. Even if they could not kill him, they could at least delay him, right? It was obvious that some people were not doing their best. The new Elven King's position was not settled yet. Otherwise, why would so many elves have died? Annie, on the other hand, looked at everything calmly. She was becoming more and more disappointed with her people. Even in the face of their archenemy, there was still internal strife. The little princess even felt that there was no need for her to continue staying here. It was better to bring some of her people to the City of Dawn to preserve their strength. But now she was thinking, did William chase after her? If he did, he would definitely be in danger. What is he doing now? But no matter what Annie thought, she could not guess that the prince had already reached the bottom of the treasure vault. What? Saving people? Apologies. Moses had said that Annie was very safe now. Now it was time to do something else. Chapter 229. When the live broadcasters arrived at Moonlight Island, they started their live broadcasts. Invisible cameras flew into the sky and used the cliched European and American movies to give the viewers a new experience. Fortunately, the viewers were not watching a movie. They were watching interesting things and sceneries, so they did not feel that anything was amiss. Little Fatty and the others disembarked from the ship. Looking around, they realized that there were hundreds of battleships densely packed together. Groups of professionals disembarked from the ship and rushed to the depths of the forest. On the other hand, the audience started shouting. If one did not know that they were spamming the bullet screen, others would think that they were shouting, Many flying magical beasts were being used as mounts in the sky. Look, isn't that a kraken? It must be introducing itself. For example, it likes to sing, dance, rap. Needless to say, these big guys are really smart. They're hundreds of meters long. Holy sh*t, people actually ran out of their mouths? That's disgusting. Do they come out from their stomachs? If they travel for a long time, what would the hungry professionals eat? TSK. They're airships. What's the principle behind this? Steam? Nuclear power? Electricity? Nuclear power my ass. The players discussed and cursed in groups of 3 to 5. The victory of the darkness invasion in the southeastern region had allowed the players to relax. Even though there were hundreds of thousands of dark creatures in every corner of the southeastern region, it became a good place for the players to kill monsters. Some players who were bored or tired from fighting monsters would choose to watch the live broadcast to see what the live broadcasters could do. In the end, this was a little unexpected. Or, rather, the players gained a lot of knowledge from watching the live broadcasters. But most of them knew that their levels were too low. Even if they could go to the human empires and kingdoms, they would not be able to do so. They did not have power, influence, or connections. They could not rely on sucking up to people. After all, not everyone was as handsome as Prince William. After the darkness invasion ended, a legendary boss came. It was a legend that Prince William succeeded in sucking up to him. They could only hope that the City of Dawn would become more powerful. Furthermore, His Royal Highness would befriend one powerhouse after another, and from then on, he would easily lead them to open up new doors. This was the hard truth. Speaking of which, where has Prince William gone to recently? The dwarf is in charge of cleaning up the aftermath of the City of Dawn. He sells his body all day, and from time to time, he walks around bare-chested. Does he think that he is very handsome? Hee, I'll remember your ID. I'll go look for the City Lord and Deputy City Lord Gao Zhuang now. Who knows where His Highness has run off to this time? Could he have run off to Moonlight Island? Who knows? There was a huge explosion at the Moonlight Tree that day, and His Highness instantly flew over. Then, he went to the fortune-telling shop and disappeared without a trace. If you say that he went to Moonlight Island, that might not be the case. The audience on the live broadcast had a wild imagination for a while. Could it be that His Highness had really gone to the Moonlight Forest? It was possible. Annie was the little princess of the Moonlight Elves. Players would have to shake their heads to say that there was no dirty deal going on between the two of them. TSK. Ever since I've seen the advanced professionals of the Empire and His Highness equipment, I feel that if His Highness really went to Moonlight Island, he would be like Granny Lou visiting the Grandview Garden. He would be dumbfounded. Impossible. Although they have magical equipment, it's hard to determine the level of such equipment. It's hard to say whether it is better than legendary equipment. William had no time to talk nonsense with them. He wanted to say that the magical equipment was awesome, but the key was the quality. On the cowhide magical equipment, could it be as awesome as his left hand of God? That was right. After Moses used half an hour to break the magical barrier, he also dug through the floor of the treasure vault. Come, bring me the magical equipment. Let me take a look. The interior of the treasure vault was extremely spacious. There were also various magical barriers and traps. Both of them saw many things in the treasure vault hall, but William still did not dare to move. Everything was guided by Moses. Moses walked in front, and William followed closely behind him. He moved slowly, almost sticking to Moses' body. This is only the outer layer of the treasure vault. If I'm not mistaken, there must be an alternate dimension that stores more treasures. Moses frowned. He was an all-round mage, but it did not mean that he could solve all the magical barriers. There were some things that he could not solve for the time being. After Moses confirmed that an area was a safe space, he let William move freely. Moses stared at a door and carefully observed it. William noticed that Moses was not interested in the mountain of gold and silver, but he would not stand on ceremony. The war between the Moonlight Elves started abnormally fast. There was no time to open the treasure vault, and no one took away the treasures. The palace had become Cronus' lair, and the treasure vault belonged to him. He did not expect that someone would steal from under his nose. Hence, both of them were safe for the time being. William looked at the mountain of gold in front of him. There were tens of millions of gold coins. It was not a small amount. But why was there not a lot? It was because everyone had space rings. Elves would carry gold coins with them. Even if they wore hundreds of thousands or millions of gold coins, they would not feel heavy. The most important point was that, in the eyes of the top powers, gold coins were not the most valuable currency. Magical crystals and magical stones were the most valuable. But William was poor, and his level was not high enough. He did not dare to reveal the magical crystals and magical stones. Gold coins were his true love. As he rummaged through the space ring, his eyes lit up as he looked around for other treasures. Not long after, William had plundered more than 10 million gold coins. It was his first windfall. Thereafter, William glanced at the silver and bronze mountains in disdain. He walked to Moses' side and watched as Moses continued to use magic that he could not understand. Time passed slowly. After an unknown number of minutes, the magical barrier silently dissipated. Moses, who was in his devil form, slowly pushed open the door. A ray of light shone out from the crack of the door. William raised his hand to block his eyes. He peered through the gap between his fingers. There was a mountain of magical crystals and magical stones. There were at least hundreds of thousands of magical crystals and 900,000 magical stones. What did this mean? The soldiers of the City of Dawn would enter the era of intermediate soldiers. As long as they found some treasures, they would be able to create many advanced soldiers. William gulped and hurriedly asked, "Can I keep these?" There's no danger. Don't disturb me." Moses frowned. It was obvious that he was looking for something. No matter how many magical crystals and magical stones there were, they were not of interest to him. Or rather, according to Moses, William's treasures were also his treasures. If he wanted them, would he not give them to him? Would he dare not give them to him? It was a pity. William did not know what Moses was thinking. Otherwise, he would definitely protest and silently hand over all the treasures. He had no choice. He could not defeat him. But what was Moses looking for? William had also sensed something. He was looking for something to break his curse. But he understood when he looked at the treasure vault, there were many precious items. They might be carried by the sages. Moses might not be able to find what he was looking for. But as he opened another door, the two of them were stunned on the spot. Chapter 2:30. What appeared in front of them was a huge dragon egg that was more than 5 meters tall. The entire dragon egg was imprisoned in a white magic barrier. A faint holy aura was constantly being released. If not for the fact that the dragon egg was too big, William would not have been able to see what was inside. William raised his eyebrows. The magical barrier in front of him was a little overbearing. He could not use his insight on the dragon egg, but he could feel the danger. Or rather, the entire treasure vault was filled with a strong holy aura. If William had not transformed into his human form, and Moses was not a pure devil, he would have been attacked by the holy light the moment he opened the door. William turned his head and asked, "Can you open the barrier?" "Yes, the Moonlight Elves do not have a Grand Mage. This is a magical barrier created by a legendary mage. I can try. After all, no matter how powerful the magic is, it will have a weakness." Moses replied confidently. In fact, he had the ability to resolve the magic and curses of a Grand Mage. It was just a matter of time. But it was obvious that Moses would not be able to remove a magical barrier created by a Grand Mage in a short period of time. The difference between a legendary mage and a Grand Mage was like the difference between a normal member and a happy member. But what puzzled Moses the most was that the magical barrier in front of him was not only a seal, but the white light also had a transformation or purification effect. No, the entire treasure vault has this purification effect. Interesting. Could it be that the Moonlight Elves intend to turn an evil dragon into a pet? Moses muttered to himself. He glanced at the black longsword on the sword rack. William seemed to have heard something and silently gave a thumbs up. Moses was awesome and had a bigger imagination than William. Then he pointed at the position where the black longsword was and asked, "Is there a trap there?" "No, just don't go near the two illusory light doors. They're the doors that lead to an alternate dimension. There will definitely be danger." Moses was not in a hurry. He would take whatever was in front of him. It was about his own curse. Even if he could not find anything that could help him break the curse, he could slowly consume it over time. Since there was a dragon egg in front of him, there was no reason to give it up. Moreover, if he raised the dragon egg and killed it, he could obtain a dragon crystal, a dragon egg that was 5 meters tall. One could imagine that the potential of this dragon egg was extraordinary. Its mother was definitely not small. Mace continued to cast spells that no one else could understand. William walked toward the longsword that gave off a sense of fatal danger. For a moment, he seemed to recognize this sword, the predecessor of the Wailing Blade. William suddenly widened his eyes. That was right. It was definitely the predecessor of the Wailing Blade. In his previous life, Cronus activated Peerless. Before he was defeated by the 3 saints, he summoned the King of Darkness to help. In the end, he used the blood and souls of millions of Moonlight Elves to create a Wailing Blade. William did not know that the Wailing Blade had any predecessors, but when he saw the sword, he felt a chill run down his spine. He recognized it. It was definitely him. That must be an evil weapon. The prince rubbed his hands. He had no reason to be afraid. After all, it was not the real Wailing Blade, so it should not cause too much of a problem. But William had to be careful. He activated his battle energy shield and stretched out his left hand. At the same time, he held the life potion in his right hand and brought it to his mouth. At most, he would just take a pill. The water of life was expensive, but it was meant to be drunk. No matter how powerful this sword was, it was impossible for it to be a holy weapon. It was even more impossible for it to be a divine artifact. It was just a legendary weapon. Hence, no matter how much blood was lost, it could not recover as fast as William. Hence, bang! William angrily smashed the statue of Lady Luck. Thales's lips twitched. He did not dare to make a sound. But just as William held the black scabbard, buzz, William felt his soul tremble. It was as if his body had entered an ice house. Ever since he had become a professional, he had not felt cold for a long time, because he lived in the subtropics. But it's really cold. It's as if I've gone to the North Pole. William shivered. It was just a slight chill. He did not feel anything with the left hand of the god. Only his left arm was a little cold. But he glanced at the information panel. Gosh! Prompt. You have been cursed by the Sword of Hegni. Prompt. You have become the owner of the Sword of Hegni. Prompt. Until your death, the Sword of Hegni will never be separated from you. It will bring you endless disasters and misfortune. Prompt. Your luck is at 1 point. The curse will not take effect. William expressionlessly glanced at the information panel. Suddenly, he laughed like a fool. Ha ha ha. Are you kidding me? William was speechless. He did not expect the sword to be the Sword of Hegni. The legendary Sword of Hegni was hidden in the Elven treasure vault. He had only seen some records in the library. This evil sword could bring endless disasters and misfortune. Many people liked it, but they did not dare to touch it. It was no wonder that it was casually placed in the vault. There was no barrier. It was because no one dared to touch it. But it did not work on him. The goddess of bad luck was infuriated. How could a mere Sword of Hegni be more powerful than the goddess of bad luck? So what if it was a powerful curse? His luck was at the limit of 1 point. Could it turn it into a negative number? Thales glanced at him and said, It seems like it suits you. It suits me too, but I don't like to use swords. William did not want to complain. Both of them had 1 point, but their combined luck was only 2 points. This Sword of Hegni was indeed suitable for them. It was no wonder that Moses did not stop him from touching the sword. Let's take a look at the attributes. William stroked his chin. Sword of Hegni, level, legendary, position level, creator, unknown materials, unknown attack, 1300 to 3800, power, plus 130, agility, plus 90, physical strength, plus 30, intelligence, minus 30, charm, minus 30, weight, 13, 9 kilograms, length, 186 centimeters, usage requirement, William Blackleaf, power of destruction, passive. This weapon can ignore 30% of the defense of most equipment, defensive shields, and city walls. When damage is dealt to creatures with health points, 50% of the health points of the creatures will be reduced. Every time an attack hits a piece of equipment, the upper limit of the durability of the equipment will be reduced or the equipment will be destroyed. Power of Hegni. For every 10% of health points sacrificed, the lower limit and upper limit of the weapon's attack will be increased by 5%. The maximum sacrifice is 90% of health points. Only 10% of health points can be sacrificed each time. It can be sacrificed up to 9 times. The first sacrifice of 10% of health points would cause the power of Hegni to last for 1 day. If the sacrifice continued, the duration of the power of Hegni would be x2. Cooldown, none. Power of Bloodlust. Passive. Every time the wielder uses this sword to injure the opponent, 15% of the damage will be used to recover the same amount of health points. Destructive Sword Energy. With the wielder as the center, it will cause 4,500 plus. Power x 500%. Destructive damage within a range of x2 levels meters. Consumption. None. Cooldown. 10 hours. Friendly reminder. This is a weapon that will bring misfortune. Regardless of whether you place it at home or in the space ring, misfortune will always accompany you until death. Oh, thank you for the reminder. William grinned, but just as he was about to unsheath the sword, a terrifying aura suddenly came from the sky. Moses was stunned. He did not expect that someone would pay attention to such a broken sword. He waved his hand and forcefully broke the barrier of the dragon egg. He waved his hand and kept the sword in the space ring. Then, he grabbed William and burrowed into the ground. Cronus, who had just broken through the space, was furious, but Sage was hot on his heels. Both of them were having a good fight in the dimensional space. How dare this bastard run away? So what if he did not respect the old sage? Bastard, why are you running away? The old elven sage stopped Moses from giving chase. He had also sensed something. Cronus had fallen into the darkness, but he still had his memories. He glanced at the thief who had disappeared and then at the old sage behind him. He did not make a sound, because the sage was the great elder of the Moonlight Elves. The previous elven king was his grandfather. Should he call him a bastard? Should he endure it? Chapter 2:31. The two of them burrowed into the hole. Moses continuously threw out dozens of magic barriers, instantly causing their auras to disappear without a trace. The two of them had escaped just like that. It was definitely not that easy. However, Cronus' grandfather had his eyes on him. This was very awkward. This elder cared more about the Sword of Curses, but he might not have the intention to make the Wailing Blade. It was more likely that he had other weapons that could replace the Wailing Blade. It was just that the Sword of Curses was more suitable to make the Wailing Blade. With the great elder of the Moonlight Elves, Camelot, in hot pursuit, it was difficult for him to rush underground to find the bandits. Furthermore, he might not be able to find them, because after staying there for a few short seconds, Cronus could feel that he could no longer catch up with the two bandits. He had a feeling. The speed at which the two bandits dug the tunnel was definitely beyond imagination. Furthermore, faster than him? How was that possible? Cronus could not believe it. After he became a saint, or rather, all the experts who had reached this level had an extremely sensitive sixth sense. Most of the time, there was no need to check one's aura. If one felt that there was something wrong with someone, then there was really something wrong with that person. This was also the main reason why Moses did not dare to show his face in front of many experts, even though his disguise was flawless. Unless one really grew up in the dark world, unless one truly believed in darkness from the bottom of one's heart. The great elder of the Moonlight Elves, Camelot, also raised his eyebrows. Someone took advantage of the chaos and asked me to take away the things in the treasury. Anyway, your grandson has no use for them. Cronus, who was floating in the air, pondered for a long time. He glanced at his grandfather, whom he had never seen before, and flew back to the palace without a care in the world. Camelot glanced at him and strolled leisurely toward the elven palace that was filled with demons. He did not seem to care about the demons in front of him at all. It was as if he had returned to his hometown. However, the tens of thousands of demons in the palace all retreated thousands of meters as if they were facing a formidable enemy. They were afraid that the great elder of the Moonlight Elves would accidentally crush them to death. Even a few legendary demon lords who lived in the palace flew out at the same time. They did not dare to stay any longer. They had no choice. This old elf king, who had existed since the Second Era, was really too famous. In particular, the story of him breaking into the dark world and killing a king of darkness was still being talked about enthusiastically to this day. But what the demons didn't understand was this. Was it the old elven king who was more powerful? Or could it be that Cronus had just stepped into the saint realm and was already so powerful that he could fight two or even three at once? Camelot didn't care about what the demons thought. He easily walked into the treasury and stepped through the hole in the ground. He glanced at the gold coins, magical crystals, and magical stones that had been stolen. Even after discovering that the dragon egg and the sword of curse were gone, this seemingly middle-aged saint's expression didn't change at all. It wasn't until he opened the two space gates that he found that the things in the other dimension didn't move. At this moment, the corners of his mouth slowly curled up into a smile. He waved his hand. All the treasures were stored in his spatial ring. As for the treasures outside the alternate dimension, he didn't even glance at them. But when he curiously stretched out his hand and touched the magic barrier that had been lifted, buzz, a sound wave spread through the entire palace. The alarm was triggered. His expression kept changing, and he gradually frowned. Not only did the nature of the magic barrier change, but even the method of triggering the alarm has been changed. Grand Sorcerer? No, it should be just a great sorcerer. Who is he? Camelot was wearing a long magic robe. He was a legendary warrior and also a grand sorcerer. He was the one who had set up the magic barrier in the treasury. However, such an elusive, an unimaginable method of breaking the seal, left him slightly astonished. He was also the most powerful person in the entire Moonlight Elven race. He was a saint who had survived since the beginning of the Second Era. He was an old monster who had lived for countless years. After he came out of the treasury, he ignored everything around him and stepped into the clouds. Like a high and mighty god, he swept his gaze across the entire Moonlight Island. Countless sceneries, animals, plants, professions, and battles taking place everywhere entered his eyes in an instant. At this moment, he was a god who controlled everything in the world. Otherwise, how could a saint kill a god? Cronus? He didn't have much ill will toward this grandson that he had only seen a few times. He didn't have a good impression of him either, but he could feel it. Cronus's fall into the darkness was not as simple as it seemed. Even if a legendary expert was still a chess piece, he would become a chess piece with his own destiny. Cronus didn't have to fall into the darkness just to become a saint. Even if he fell into the darkness, he didn't have to start a war with the entire Moonlight Elven race. You want to become a chess player? You want to destroy and rebuild at the beginning of the Fourth Era? Camelot raised his eyebrows and sighed. It's too simple, too direct, too violent, and there's no way to turn back. Even if you succeed, how will you return to the Moonlight Elves? Falling into the darkness and killing countless people? How can you wash away the infamy on your body? Oh, I understand. You want to become the shame of the Moonlight Elves and their nightmare. Yes, there can be no construction without destruction. You used your fall into the darkness as the reason to stir up the courage of your people. If you don't succeed, you will become a martyr. If there really isn't a member of the younger generation to personally kill you, then how can we talk about rising in the Fourth Era? Camelot sighed. No wonder your father wants to pass the throne to you. It seems like he knows you better than I do. Just now, the two of them had broken the alternate dimension and had a bloody battle. At that time, Camelot kept asking why Cronus wanted to do this. Cronus didn't reply. He just attacked his grandfather with all his might. It was a pity. Camelot could really beat Cronus up. He was just rubbing Cronus on the ground. Then, Cronus suddenly broke the alternate dimension and allowed Camelot to take away the items in the treasury. Camelot finally figured something out. Cronus was indeed killing his people, but he didn't destroy the foundation of the elves. Only after all his people had left the royal city did he attack the old, high-level people. Camelot was also changing one thing. That was to prevent his people from being persecuted in future wars. In one sentence, this wasn't just destroying and rebuilding. It was also killing to prevent losses. Camelot couldn't even imagine how high Cronus' vision was. After all, Cronus was still very young. He was only 500 years old. He hadn't lived through the Second Era or the beginning of the Third Era. Camelot, who had lived through two eras, didn't have the courage to do this personally. This was because he treasured his reputation more. In this aspect, he was far inferior to Cronus. The Golden Age has really begun. Camelot muttered to himself. He thought of the countless years when he was a genius. But in the Fourth Era, it was far more dangerous than the previous 3 eras. Because, other than the gods and demons who would descend in this era, countless geniuses, reincarnations of the gods and demons, immortal heaven's chosen ones, etc. As for Cronus falling into darkness, maybe he had his own reasons. Maybe the gods and demons had interfered. Maybe it was for the rise of his race. But no matter what, this was a chaotic era. It was so chaotic that even an expert like him couldn't calculate everything. In any case, everything that you see could be fake. Unless you are that person. Even if you are that person, isn't everything you do within the calculations of others? Chapter 232. The two earth-drilling mice, who were hundreds of meters deep underground, quickly ran away from the treasury in a disorderly manner. They even ran out of the capital. At this moment, William sat in the hole and waved his right hand. He panted and said, "I can't dig anymore. I really can't dig anymore. My left hand is fine, but my left arm is swollen." Moses glanced at William's thickened left arm and then at his slender left arm. He rolled his eyes in disdain. As a man, how could he not have such stamina? He useless. Moses cast a recovery magic spell. He frowned and used his magic to sense if anyone was chasing them. After 2 or 3 minutes, Moses stroked his chin and said, "I don't think they are chasing us. It seems like we didn't steal any important treasures. Fortunately, we weren't too greedy. Otherwise, when I touched the alternate dimension barrier, I would have been discovered. Continue digging. Dig for tens of thousands of meters, and we'll be able to get out." Dig? Tens of thousands of meters? "I can't do it, boss." William was speechless. Did Moses think that he liked to dig holes? Especially on this lousy island. There are so many mineral veins below. If we don't dig, we will be surrounded by dark creatures. Do you still want to drink the transformation potion? Dig, dig, dig. What is there to drink? I'll treat it as training. William frowned. He would rather dig than drink the transformation potion. At the same time, Fatty and his companions joined the battlefield as temporary mercenaries. At this moment, a grand battle was taking place. The battle in the southeastern region could not be compared to this. When the live streamers entered the battlefield, they felt like a few small bugs. The other players were tall, strong, and ferocious. Both sides were enemies. The intermediate level was just a small fry. The advanced level was the regular army. The Grandmaster was the high-end combat power. The epic level was the peak. The legendary level was on another battlefield. Little Fatty raised the camera to its highest point and saw a shocking scene. A devil's den suddenly rose from the ground. Tens of thousands of dark creatures, who were already prepared, rushed to the lower end of the battlefield. The countless dark creatures were about to tear the tens of thousands of elven soldiers into pieces. A water enchanter stood up. He gently waved his magic wand. Countless water elements gathered together in an instant. At that moment, many people looked up. It was as if they were looking at a huge lake suddenly inverted in the sky. The surface of the lake was like a mirror, unable to stir up any wind or waves. But when they saw this scene, the hundreds of thousands of dark creatures wanted nothing more than to crawl back into the devil's den forbidden spell. The flood surged to the heavens. As the lake with a circumference of tens of thousands of meters landed on the ground with a loud bang. Rumble. That was not a flood. It was like a heavy mountain crashing down, crushing countless dark creatures into a pile of meat paste. Only then did the flood disperse the dark race army. Do you really think that no one can deal with you? An epic-ranked evil demon glared angrily. His body gave off a series of explosions as he charged towards the archmage who could instantly cast a forbidden spell. There were very few such experts in the elven race. This was a magister who had the potential to step into the legendary realm. If possible, he must be killed. But at the same time, an epic-ranked melee elf also charged at the other party and blocked him. The instant the two of them started fighting, they left behind an earth-shattering rumble. The two of them shot into the sky at the same time. This was because just the shock waves from the battle between the two of them were enough to kill many soldiers. This was something the elves did not want to see. As for the evil demons, they did not care. It was a pity. Cronus had warned them sternly that they were not allowed to do that. And those who did, that were already dead, 3 epic-ranked evil demons and a legendary evil lord had already been killed by Cronus. It was like killing a chicken or a dog. They were easily killed by Cronus. They could not resist at all. That's right. This war was indeed caused by Cronus. However, he had already become a saint and did not need to listen to the King of Darkness. Now that he had entered the dark world, he was in equal existence. As such, the master of this battlefield was Cronus. Even though most of his subordinates were evil demons and dark creatures, they still had to listen to his orders. If the dark world wanted to invade, Cronus could also borrow their strength to let the Moonlight Elves be reborn. They were both using each other. If the Moonlight Elves were really defeated, they would not be able to recover. It would be better for them to survive in the 4th era under the protection of the 2 saints. They might even give up on a treasured land like Moonlight Island and hide in a remote area. Cronus did not need others to see through him. He only needed to be the executioner of his people. Perhaps he had killed countless people. Perhaps. No one understood. But he did not need to understand. He did not know in advance whether his actions were right or wrong. Only history could reflect his actions. Cronus had a dream. On a certain day, the prosperous and powerful Moonlight Elves would leave a mark in the history books. It was because of him, the traitor, that awakened the elves' bravery, and they became powerful. I really hope that when that moment comes, even if my corpse is nailed to the pillar of shame and I am cursed by countless people, so what? You are still my most beloved people. Cronus sat on the throne alone. He looked at the empty hall and the palace that no longer had any greenery, but his eyes were filled with longing for the future. Just like what William had said, this undamaged palace was a place for him to reminisce. Because every king was lonely. Cronus was a lonely death god. He was waiting for a new king with anger and a sharp sword to cut off his head. He would use himself as a warning to lead his people to prosperity and a new life. Fatty and the rest did not dare to participate in this battle. They ignored the disdainful gazes of others and hid in a safe corner. They continued to provide a good visual experience for the audience. Look, it's a cannon gunner. Gosh, are cannon gunners that powerful? Many spectators commented on the bullet screen. A Grandmaster cannon gunner charged into the battlefield. He used two hand cannons as if he was using gun kata. Dense white beams of light shot out from the magic energy cannons. Pom, pom, pom. The cannons were not fast, but they were powerful and rhythmic. The magic cannons destroyed everything in their path. The dark creatures were blasted into ashes. When a devil of the same level charged towards the cannon gunner did not care about the devil. Instead, he threw his two-hand cannons into the sky. The two-hand cannons rotated and shot energy cannons in all directions. In an instant, a large number of dark creatures were killed. "You deserve to die," the devil shouted. He transformed into a black shadow and charged towards the cannon gunner. But at this moment, the cannon gunner, who did not have a weapon, took a step back. A long sniper cannon appeared out of thin air. The magical crystals on the sniper cannon glowed. The cannon gunner channeled his battle energy into the cannon. Boom! A light beam that was thousands of meters long pierced through the entire battlefield. And that devil died on the spot. It had to be said, the cannon gunner was a profession that had appeared in the Third Era. Not only was it powerful, but it was also very handsome. Many players were stunned by this scene. But the most important thing was this profession was definitely worth a lot of money. The guns and cannons that were embedded with purple crystals were definitely not cheap. Ordinary professionals did not need so many weapons at the same time. A handsome elf who had just crawled out of the ground fell into deep thought. He had saved for a few months and even used a drop of life potion on his head to grow long hair. But now it was gone. Damn, if I did not wear a helmet, I would definitely be bald. But why do I feel that I will still be bald in the future? William touched his hot legendary helmet. Fortunately, he had sensed the danger and dodged the light beam. Otherwise, not only would he be bald, but his head would also explode. He glared at the cannon gunner. Just you wait. Sooner or later, I will find a group of silverback monkeys and let you know why your ass is so red. Chapter 233. As soon as William appeared, he was surrounded by countless devils. An advanced legendary was a super soldier on this battlefield. But I'm a super soldier. William saw a group of advanced devils surrounding him, but he did not continue burrowing into the ground. It was true. He had dug enough holes in his life. He slammed his hands on the ground, and his body rose from the ground. At that moment, William activated his battle energy shield. He was like the thunder god. Dozens of dazzling lightning bolts accompanied him and struck the ground. Rumble. Countless electric arcs filled the surroundings. All the devils within a 100-meter radius were struck to the ground. Even if they did not die in a short period of time, they would not be able to get up in a short period of time. Just as William turned to look at Moses, a spatial fluctuation appeared. Moses disappeared. His words echoed in William's ears. "I'm going to take a look at the dragon egg. Hold on." What a scam. The corners of William's mouth twitched. Moses had left him in the middle of the battlefield at such a crucial moment. Wasn't this a scam? He could not use the sword of Hegni. At least not on Moonlight Island. Otherwise, as a thief, he would be picked up and beaten by the big boss like a mouse. But if he did not use the Sword of Hegni, he would still be able to fight. A ray of black, sword energy, swept towards him. William leaned back, and the remaining strands of hair on his head were swept away by the sword. The enraged prince took out the lightning bow and shot out 9 lightning arrows. "Are you trying to kill me? I'll just nod my head. Pom, pom, pom." The ordinary advanced devils that attacked him were forced to retreat. Their bodies were covered in blood. In the next moment, William, who had transformed into a saint's soul, traversed through space and appeared in front of the devil. He stepped on the devil's shoulders and stabbed downwards with his sword. Crack! The sword energy pierced into the devil's brain. The devil knelt on the ground. As a dense black energy blasted towards him, William flipped over and jumped up. The devil under his feet was blasted into a pile of minced meat. William, who was in midair, dashed towards the devil and slashed with his sword energy. But the devil also unleashed a dense black sword energy. The sword energies from both sides collided. Rumble, William's saber energy, slashed continuously, forcefully smashing his opponent's saber energy and killing him on the spot. "How dare you!" A demon with a legendary bloodline suddenly appeared and stabbed William in the back. Crack! The tip of the sword pierced through the shield, but it hit something hard. It only grazed the hard object and stabbed into William's back. "Get lost!" William flipped over and kicked him, causing him to retreat dozens of meters like a cannonball. At this moment, he heaved a sigh of relief with a lingering fear in his heart. He couldn't help but murmur, "Fortunately, the fire dragon's reverse scale has a good defense. It protects my chest from both front and back. Otherwise, I would have died on the spot." William was really good at protecting himself. There was a legendary helmet on his head, and there were fire dragon reverse scales on his chest. Even if the fire dragon was only at the intermediate tier, the quality of the materials was high enough. As long as it was slightly refined, it would be enough to turn it into a high-tier equipment. In addition, he had been wearing the epic inner armor ever since he had transmigrated. Aside from being instantly killed on the battlefield, it was very difficult for him to die. A man and a demon fought together, although both of them were high-tier. But the battlefield was not small. In particular, William's Thunder Endowment had been strengthened many times. It was extremely dazzling. This scene, Fatty and the others also saw it. When a group of live broadcasters zoomed in on the screen in disbelief, the screen exploded with comments. "Gosh, Prince William is awesome. Let's see. I said that he and Princess Annie must have a close relationship. Yes, yes, yes. I'm dying of thirst in the car door. No one can get off today. Continue. Buy all of Annie's shares. Why don't you buy my shares? I'm Prince William's concubine." William was in a frenzy of fighting. He did not have the time to notice the players coming to this battlefield. But the most frustrating thing about this battlefield was there were too many advanced creatures. Since they could become advanced, their bloodlines had to be at least advanced. William fought with a demon for a while. When he saw that the situation was not right, he decisively used the power of the Saint's Spirit. All his attributes were increased by 23%, and his speed increased tremendously. He transformed into a bolt of lightning that traversed the battlefield. He desperately ran in the direction of his allies. But the worst thing was the allies were in a mess. There were all kinds of occupations. The group attacks did not stop. In just a few seconds, Yi Zichen's expression changed. William had lost tens of thousands of health points, and it was all because of his damned allies. It was quite a coincidence. These people's skills would always pass by him, so much so that she had to do it to him in a roundabout way. Holy crap, this isn't right. My luck is still at 1. It hasn't changed. The corners of William's mouth twitched, but he knew what was going on. When he was in the City of Dawn, everyone knew that he was the Lord, so they would intentionally avoid him. But now, he was a super soldier here. No one cared whether they were accidentally injured or not. Furthermore, even if he was accidentally injured in the City of Dawn, he would not suffer too much. There weren't many high-grade professions. After a difficult escape from death, William finally got rid of the encirclement of his allies. He dragged his tired body back with injuries. At this moment, he was somewhat relieved. Fortunately, he had advanced hardened skin, which strengthened his defense. Otherwise, he might have had to activate the special effect of the epic inner armor. Suddenly, several figures ran in front of him. Greetings to the Lord and Prince William. Prince William, you're not dead. Holy crap, Prince William is awesome. You're not dead? I saw it. The Allies attacked you crazily. William gradually fell into deep thought. He glanced at Fatty, who did not say anything but could not help but laugh. He sighed and said, "What are you doing here? We're looking for you. Prince William, where do you want us to send you?" William smacked his lips and did not say anything. They were being polite. He would pretend that he did not hear them. If they were really going to send him, he would have to fork out some equipment and experience points. But when some professionals heard their strange conversation, black faces appeared on their faces. Where did this black-haired, balding elf come from? Where did he come from? And where did he come from? Especially these intermediate professions. Were they all so loyal? Did they know that they were going to die on the battlefield? This situation naturally attracted the attention of some moonlight elves. After all, the moonlight elves had silver hair and eyes. An advanced male elf slowly walked over. He curiously looked at William and asked, "Blackleaf elf?" William pondered for a while and nodded. "Yes, William Blackleaf." Blackleaf? The moonlight elves were slightly stunned. It seemed like he was not lying. They bowed and said, "Greetings, Prince William Blackleaf." "Greetings, my friends." William returned the greetings. He was originally afraid that he would be embarrassed with his pitiful appearance. But these moonlight elves did not care about William's current appearance. He had fought a bloody battle with many devils and killed countless thunder gods. It was enough to prove his strength and courage. So what if he looked bad? More importantly, he was really good looking. Many female elves looked at him, and their eyes lit up. William's screen was filled with notifications of affinity points. When Annie found out that he was here and sent someone to capture him, the notification stopped. But as William approached the gathering place of the moonlight elves, William felt that something was wrong. Some people were looking at him strangely, but they were still pretending not to have affinity points for him. These people were definitely bad. Chapter 234. This was originally a small town of the moonlight elves, but now it had become a huge city that could accommodate millions of residents. Enchanters and great enchanters had personally built the city. The construction speed was unimaginably fast, and the quality of the city was not to be doubted. The city was more than 50 meters tall. Various glowing green vines covered the city walls. It seemed that the enemies could easily climb up the walls. But the greatest use of these plants was defense. It was not to prevent the enemies from climbing, but to defend against the dark creatures' magic cannons. After all, the elves had used magic barriers or defense shields to defend against attacks. It was too wasteful to do so now. Behind the city walls, there were many huge trees that grew out of the ground. They formed all kinds of strange shapes. These were arrow towers and cannon turrets. Anything that could be done with plants, the elves would not use other methods to build their cities. When William entered the Green City, he saw many elven commoners. They were slightly sad and angry, but it seemed that the elves had the upper hand in this war. Millions of moonlight elves had died in battle, and tens of millions of dark creatures had died. The number of devils was also not small. They had such a huge advantage. The moonlight elves had changed from defense to counterattack. They wanted to take back their city. They would not allow the traitor to live. Only by killing him would they be able to pay tribute to their dead clansmen. But William felt that the elves' thinking was a little slow, or rather, the elves' reaction was a little slow. After all, they had lived for a long time, and they thought that everything had to be done slowly. According to their thinking, this war would not be a problem for them to fight for decades. But they had forgotten that this was not the past. They did not have that many clansmen, and their strength was not that strong. They would not fight for decades. The war in the Fourth Era was fast and fast-paced. If the elves did not have an excellent leader, and they fought at such a slow pace, there would be a lot of casualties. William followed a few elves to the center of the city. He saw a few elves with unfriendly gazes. It didn't even increase their affinity. His Royal Highness pursed his lips. As he walked past them, he had earned a lot of favorability point from the elves, but these guys were really different. Therefore, he asked intentionally. Only then did he realize that those fellows were the second prince's personal guards. Second prince. William thought for a while and seemed to understand something. As he approached the center of the city, they gradually came to the bottom of the tallest moonlight tree. This gigantic moonlight tree was thousands of meters tall. When all its branches and leaves were spread out, it could be said to blot out the sky. There were many small tree houses on the huge tree trunk, which were filled with high-level elves. The tree trunk at the bottom had a diameter of several hundred meters. The leaves on the top of his head glowed with a silver light, blooming with specks of light. In particular, the leaves seemed to be consciously closing the leaves, allowing the sunlight to shine on the ground, so that the elves on the ground could enjoy the sunlight. As for the silver radiance that was visible to the naked eye, it was none other than the magic power provided for the cultivation of professionals. There was more than one moonlight tree. There were other moonlight trees that were hundreds of meters tall nearby, but the one in front of him was definitely an ancestral tree. The elves of the Second Era had many magical plants. In particular, the elves had an extraordinary love and dedication to trees. Besides the world tree, almost all the magical trees on the gods' continent have been taken away by the elves. Basically, only the Phoenix's ancestral parasol tree was not uprooted. The rest were all taken away. At that time, the Elven Empire was unimaginably powerful. When William was still a player, he had entered a certain time fragment and seen the Elven Empire's royal palace. It was simply a world formed by countless giant trees. The world tree, which was as tall as the sky, was at the center. The other trees were tens of thousands of meters tall, and the trees that were thousands of meters tall. Elves of the Second Era did not live on the ground. The branches and leaves of the trees were connected, and rivers, lakes, and grasslands could all be moved to the trees. They were like angels that lived in the Sky City. It was a pity. Everything ended with the destruction of the world tree. That shocking explosion. Too many rare trees have been destroyed. This was also why the Moonlight Elves Guardian tree was only a moonlight tree that was thousands of meters tall. William arrived at the ancestral land of the Moonlight Tree. After the fall of the Elven Royal Palace, the palace was completely lost. The Moonlight Tree became the residence of the Elven royalty and the higher-ups. This was a no-fly zone. If William wanted to go up, he could only go through the entrance below. When the two guards saw him, they decisively extended their weapons and blocked the entrance. They looked at William with a scrutinizing gaze. Then, they looked at the familiar person behind him. Who is he? The guard was puzzled. He's the prince of the Blackleaf Elves. He's also a friend of Princess Annie. The princess once instructed me to bring him to meet the princess the moment I find him. The guide replied with a smile. The two guards looked at each other and put away their weapons. At the same time, they nodded at William to show their respect. But they still said, "Your Highness, please wait for a while. I'll ask the princess." "There's no need. Lure him in to find me." The guard was stunned. An old voice entered his ears. He glanced at the others. Obviously, no one had heard the voice. So he smiled and opened the door, leading William in. But he was still puzzled. That was not Princess Annie's voice. It was the great elder who had not appeared for a long time informing him. Both of them entered the huge moonlight tree. A magic tunnel that led from top to bottom appeared in front of William. The guard glanced at the calm William and led him into the magic tunnel. Then, he chanted an incantation. Swish! The scenery in front of them instantly changed. The surrounding tree hole had shrunk by more than a few hundred meters. It was almost the limit, if there were no accidents. At this moment, he had reached the top of the moonlight tree. The person he wanted to meet was definitely not Annie. The guard seemed to know that he was hesitating, but he only smiled and said, "Your Highness, don't worry. It's just that the great elder wants to meet you." So, he extended his hand and gestured for William to go over. He had no intention of following William. His Royal Highness didn't think too much about it and walked out calmly. He did not have time to consider why the great elder of the elves wanted to meet him. But no matter what, he understood. He just had to be steady. With his charm, He did not need to be afraid of death. After leaving the tree hole, he walked to the only tree house. The wooden door creaked open. A middle-aged man wearing a white magic robe was lying on a rocking chair. He looked at William curiously. That pair of eyes, they were like two moons that were filled with divine radiance. Before William could greet him, Camelot suddenly said, "Treasure vault thief." Ah! William was bewildered. He was stunned for 2 seconds before he came to his senses. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Greetings, great elder. Greetings, sage." Camelot ignored him. The old man thoughtfully stroked his chin. Was it really not him? But why did he feel that it was him? But the most important thing was, why? Beep. Prompt. Camelot's affinity for you has increased by 30 points. Chapter 235. Camelot couldn't believe that he had developed a favorable impression of William. He didn't know what it was. The more he looked at William, the more he felt that William was interesting. It was as if he was looking at his own child. William calmly watched as Camelot's favorable impression of him increased. He was getting more and more surprised, and he became more cautious. Even sages couldn't ignore William's unparalleled looks. But the elves didn't seem to care. What did this mean? They were disgusted with William. That wasn't right. Their favorable impression of William didn't decrease. In that case, can I say that they are not elves? William's endowment was very interesting. He had clearly marked that other than dark creatures, any other living creatures, plants, animals, and even gods would have a certain favorable impression of him, unless there was enmity between them. That's right. The guards of the second Prince of Moonlight should be transformed from dark creatures. This is in line with the Moonlight Elves. William was about to recall the past. Camelot finally opened his mouth and said in a teasing tone, "Introduce yourself, little lord." William blinked and said, "I'm William Blackleaf. I was born in the Dark Night City. My father is a human, and my mother is a Blackleaf elven princess. 2 years ago, I inherited my father's border town. At that time, the population was less than 3,000. After 2 years of development, the City of Dawn has a population of more than 500,000. During critical times, we can have more than 50,000 soldiers." "Oh, this is similar to what Annie told me. Why don't you tell me more? What makes you think that you can take her away just because you came here?" Camelot's words implied that if William couldn't take out a valuable betrothal gift, Annie wouldn't be able to return to the City of Dawn with her dowry. William's lips twitched. He wanted to say that he was a half-elf. How could he have the support of a half-elf? The title of prince was just an empty title. Camelot nonchalantly glanced at William. As the great elder who had lived since the Second Era, he had experienced too much. The Second Era was the most prosperous era for the elves, but it was also the weakest era. At the end of the Second Era, due to the Darkness invasion, the number of pure-blooded elves in the Gods' Continent was less than 10%. After the destruction of the World Tree, the leaders of the elves and the humans made up their minds. Through all kinds of marriages, many gnomes were born, quickly increasing the strength of their high-level forces. Half-elf, it was the key to defeating the dark creatures. But at the same time, it also caused innumerable damage to the pure-blood elves. Half-elves had a physique comparable to elves, but they also had a growth rate comparable to humans. However, they also had the complex psychological factors of humans: betrayal, deception, treachery. This caused the countless pure-blooded elves who trusted them to suffer a heavy blow. Half-elves had heroes. There were also treacherous heroes. In the end, after the pure-blooded elves left the prosperous continent, the half-elves used their unique identities to establish a neutral faction. They didn't rely on the humans, nor did they rely on the elves. However, Camelot believed that since the Blackleaf elves could endure the humiliation and retreat into the Blackleaf forest and give up their surname, it meant that there were wise people among them. In this great era, someone would definitely invest in William. What he wanted to ask was who was supporting William. This would make him decide to send a portion of his clansmen to follow William. Since you already have the intention of rebirth, you should also have the intention of preserving your bloodline. Camelot looked at him calmly. He really hoped that Camelot would have some capital worth investing in. But after a few minutes, William didn't say anything valuable. He didn't say anything about the Blackleaf elves investing in him. He just shrugged and said, "The gods and devils will descend from an alternate dimension." Then he pointed to the ground and said, "The darkness invasion is the beginning. The fourth era has begun." Then he pointed to the sky and said, "There are living beings on the three moons." Next, at this moment, Camelot's eyes lit up as he looked deeply at William. After pondering for a long time, he slowly said, "Don't mention about the moon. Don't mention it to anyone." "I know." William nodded. "Who told you?" Camelot couldn't help but ask. "There are living beings on the three moons." MMP, which Olby asterisk starred, leaked this information. The darkness invasion, the fourth era, and the arrival of the gods and devils could not be hidden from the higher-ups. But the moons, could they be told to a child? That was right. In Camelot's eyes, William was still a child. He was a hairless and incompetent little brat. But William's mouth twitched and he lied. "My father." Buffed. Camelot cursed in his heart. Had William seen his father? Before William was born, his father had disappeared into an alternate dimension. But the fact that there were living beings on the moons was enough to prove that the old man was investing in William. Camelot was slightly relieved. He continued, "Tomorrow, bring Annie and her mother's 200,000 tribesmen back." 200,000 tribesmen? William couldn't help but widen his eyes. He wasn't surprised, but he couldn't take it anymore. Even though William hadn't investigated how powerful Annie's mother was, she definitely had many legendary and epic warriors. If they really came to the City of Dawn, who would listen to whom? The leader of the City of Dawn might become Annie. What about William? Perhaps he would become the son-in-law of a certain country. After all, an overbearing profession joining his territory was not something that a lord liked to see. Powerful existences like Old Band and Moses were an accident. William had used his endowment to improve his familiarity with them. Camelot looked at the frightened William and smiled. "Don't worry about powerful professionals joining us. They will stay here and continue to fight. But remember, don't send my tribesmen to their deaths." Understood. William understood Camelot's actions. He was making arrangements for his funeral. He was probably afraid that he couldn't defeat Cronus, so he sent some tribesmen to ensure the continuation of his bloodline. Camelot waved his hand. He knew what William was thinking when he saw his gaze. William couldn't defeat his grandson? Puffed. William was too lazy to beat him up. The Moonlight Elves had been living too comfortably in the center of the legendary continent. There were 3 pure-blooded elves in the legendary continent. Only the Moonlight Elves lived in the center of the legendary continent. The Blackleaf Elves lived in the Blackleaf Forest, while the Snow Elves lived in the extreme north. They were poor in remote places, and they could encounter enemies there. Moonlight Island was surrounded by a huge inland lake, while the 3 human empires surrounded it. There were only commercial exchanges between the 2 empires. There had never been a war. But the Moonlight Elves hadn't experienced a war for thousands of years, and their bravery had been worn out. At this moment, they used fresh blood to provoke their tribesmen. Death isn't scary. What's scary is that when a chaotic war breaks out, the tribesmen won't even have the courage to draw their swords. Camelot had experienced too much. Since Cronus had a plan, as his grandfather, Camelot would play a game of chess with him. After all, the sages wouldn't die. The tribe wouldn't perish. Chapter 236. Before William left, he told the Great Elder that there was something wrong with the second prince's personal guards. Camelot waved his hand and did not care. Or rather, this old fellow had seen through everything, but he did not care. The prince shrugged his shoulders. The sages were the true extraordinary beings. They were comparable to the gods. It was a pity that he had only reached the legendary level in his previous life. He had stopped at the sage level. Moreover, sages were just a general term. There were many levels within them. If one did not reach this level, it would be difficult to find relevant information from history or books. But William had not lived in vain. He more or less knew some information. Otherwise, the strongest human beings would not have the ability and confidence to kill the gods. Next, William, accompanied by the guards, slowly knocked on Annie's door. The guards gave William a "you're awesome" look and left tactfully. After all, the Blackleaf Elfin Prince had just met the Great Elder. Now that he was at the door of the princess, he was almost certain of one thing. The marriage between the two races had basically been decided. Anyway, that was what he thought. The door was opened. Annie, who was wearing a pink dress, was frowning. But when she saw the person, her small face suddenly became dazed. Her eyes were filled with disbelief, joy, fear, and many other emotions. Don't ask William how he could tell. He could not tell. It was all a voiceover. Why? You didn't expect me to come. When William saw that Annie was fine, he caressed the little princess' long silver hair without any scruples. He entered the room and closed the door. Hey! Annie hurriedly pushed him away. She looked at him with a bitter expression. She could not help but complain in her heart. Why are you touching me now? I had just combed my hair, and you messed it up again. I'm here just for a hey. At this moment, the prince suddenly looked at the princess's eyes. At this moment, it was as if he had been electrocuted. No, William's eyes were really electrocuting. Her eyes hurt. Annie rubbed her red eyes and cursed in her heart. Why did he release electricity for no reason? But then she seemed to recall something. She grabbed William's arm in fear and could not help but ask, You came through that space door. You don't know the location of the secret tunnel. How did you escape? The people in the city have their own plans. You're still young, so you won't understand. I'm your sister. Annie pouted, but after secretly comparing their heights, she felt a little discouraged. She was shorter than him. Her chest was not even as big as William's. How infuriating. Well, it's up to you. I never argue with female animals. You could be my sister if you want, William said nonchalantly. The princess squinted her crescent-shaped eyes and raised her slender eyebrows, asking, What do you mean? No. The corners of William's mouth twitched. It was precisely because of the fickle temperament of female animals that he could not be bothered to argue with her. But now, Annie was about to transform again. Ever since His Royal Highness realized Annie's true strength. A little assassin who could also turn invisible. Damn it. William was so scared that his heart beat wildly when the two of them were together. No matter how serious the matter was, the style would gradually deviate from the comical situation. As time passed, the prince fell asleep on the bed again after the two of them had just finished talking about business. Annie could only clench her small fists speechlessly. She wished she could punch him flat. But at this moment, the little princess had nowhere to rest her heart. Because she was leaving tomorrow. She was leaving Moonlight Island officially. She had to lead her people to the City of Dawn. For a moment, Annie could not help but cover her blushing face. What was this? She was not of age yet, and her grandfather was sending her away. Although she was very comfortable living in the City of Dawn, it was still a short period of time. She had not recognized this guy in front of her. What kind of person was he? Moreover, she was still a little worried about the Moonlight Island. But she also understood. Even if she was here, her people would not let her go to the battlefield. It was not because she was a woman or a member of the royal family, but because her combat power was not enough. When Annie thought of this, she suddenly looked at the guy who was snoring loudly again. She felt something. The bastard in front of her was definitely not so pure and kind. He must have some relationship with a female animal. No, he might even have some relationship with some male animals. For example, the angel Xian of the serpent race, Moses of the fortune-telling shop, and his subordinates. The muscular man Odom, the loyal burned cinder who had been resurrected. Annie could not help but feel angry when she thought of this. However, after taking a closer look at William's face and pondering for 2 seconds, she bit her lip and mumbled, But he's really good-looking. No matter if he has long or short hair, no matter how he sleeps, he's good-looking in every way. When she thought of this, Annie suddenly understood why William had attracted so much attention, because the bad guy in front of her was really unimaginably good-looking. And he was getting more and more good-looking. As long as one did not have a grudge against him, it was difficult to feel hatred towards him. Ha! Annie suddenly made up her mind and slapped William's chest. What are you doing? William woke up with a start. He habitually wiped the corners of his mouth. Then he saw the little princess covering her hand with her red eyes. He did not know what she had done. What did you put on your chest? William was speechless. It was the fire dragon's reverse scale. Not only was it hard, but it was also very prickly. But why did she hit his chest for no reason? He was sleeping soundly. Didn't she see that his arm was swollen? He had been digging holes for the past 2 days and was exhausted. Annie sighed. She looked at William's innocent and adorable expression. She could not vent her anger. She could only sit at the side, resentfully, and stare blankly at the sky outside the window. William pursed his lips. He touched the reverse scale on his chest. Fortunately, the durability had not dropped. When the princess saw his actions, she was so angry that her entire body trembled. Fortunately, Annie kept comforting herself. Don't be angry, don't be angry. I'm a princess. I'm a noble and elegant fairy. I can't be angry. How can I not be angry? Just as Annie was about to summon the rainbow pony to teach William a lesson, the prince suddenly sighed with a sad expression. Annie pursed her lips and temporarily put aside the thought of beating him up. She asked with concern, "What's the matter?" "Tomorrow, you have to bring 100,000 tribesmen to the City of Dawn. We don't have enough food and equipment. Can you help me think of a solution?" When William spoke, he raised his eyebrows in a friendly manner. He hoped that Annie could understand him. For example, he could go to the warehouse to take some items, or he could ask the legendary boss for some. Annie narrowed her eyes and nodded. Okay. Wait here. I'll think of a solution now." Yes. After the little princess left, 10 minutes later, a group of female elves suddenly carried weapons and rushed into the house. Annie blocked the door and said fiercely, "Sisters, he bullied me. If I don't beat him up now, I won't have another chance in the future." "That's enough. Just watch, princess." Then, only endless screams were left, but no one knew. When Annie sneaked out, she managed to obtain a few extra-large space rings. Chapter 237. The next day, William, who had been beaten up, made up his mind to return immediately. He wanted to leave this sad place. He was not very powerful, so he would not be of much use even if he stayed. Actually, he wanted to stay for a few more days. It was a pity that after William stayed in Annie's house for a night, the great elder of Moonlight Forest came looking for him and told him to return immediately. That was because Camelot had a feeling that if this little fellow continued to mingle around here, Annie wouldn't just be siding with an outsider. It wouldn't just be a matter of stealing a few space rings. She might even be able to occupy the entire Moonlight Forest. Even if it was a dowry, she would not give away so much. The great elder was very tired. The Moonlight Elves were also in a miserable state. Why was his granddaughter so insensible? More importantly, William did not give her any betrothal gifts. Although the two of them were still young and not engaged, he should at least show some sincerity. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. Annie was leaving with 200,000 of her clansmen. Many people came to send her off. Only the second prince said that he had something to attend to. Most of the clansmen from Annie's mother's side came. There were 2 legendary warriors and more than 10 epic warriors. At this moment, a legendary warrior patted William's shoulder and said with a smile, "I heard that Prince William likes to bully others." "No, it's not me. I didn't." William denied it decisively. What did he bully Annie? She was the one who bullied him. Yesterday, she even found a group of ladies to beat him up. He did not even dare to retaliate. It doesn't matter if it's the truth or not. The important thing is that Annie thinks that she's being bullied. That means that you're the bully. As her uncle, I can't ignore it. What do you think? The legendary warrior, who had scolded the second prince for being useless in the meeting room, patted William's shoulder calmly. Pom, pom, pom. Every time he patted William gently, both of William's feet sank into the ground. It was like playing whack-a-mole. The mole could not run. The most important thing was not that his body was sinking, but William's heart was sinking. It was because Annie's family was very powerful. What kind of uncles were they? They were legendary warriors. How could they bully an insignificant person like William? Did they have to go overboard? Were they threatening William now? Then, when I returned to the City of Dawn, I could do whatever I wanted. I could sing, dance, and rap. William glanced at the little princess, who was reluctant to part with her clansmen. When they returned to the City of Dawn, he would smack her, but until it was swollen. He would write his surname backward. "Pa, William felt a sharp pain in his shoulder. He raised his head innocently. His health bar had dropped. The legendary warrior raised his eyebrows. What thick skin! I've purposely used internal force, and yet I didn't manage to knock a little ranger down? He looked into William's eyes and said, "Take good care of Annie. Don't have any bad ideas. You're still children." Ong, His Royal Highness nodded dejectedly. "I know I'm still a child. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a problem of mine, but being swollen." The legendary warrior narrowed his eyes. This little guy was a little disobedient, but he had already warned all that he needed to warn. In the future, it would depend on Annie's plans. At this moment, a buzzing sound was heard. Everyone raised their heads and looked over. Camelot gently waved his hand and tore open a crack in space. Dense magic condensed in his hand, expanding the crack and stabilizing it. 3 minutes later, when the crack became an oval shape with a length, width, and height of 10 meters, a water screen appeared. Camelot calmly said, "It's connected to the teleportation portal of the City of Dawn. It's time to go over." As an enchanter, Old Ban did not need to stay here. He was also on the way back. He nodded respectfully at the Great Elder and waved his hand to lead his clansmen through the teleportation portal. It was a pity that no one noticed that Moses, who was not an elf, was among them. What about William? He was humiliated by 2 legendary warriors and a dozen epic warriors. He endured the humiliation, endured the hardships, and swallowed his anger. Time passed. An hour had passed. 200,000 moonlight elves passed through the huge teleportation portal. William grabbed Annie's hand and quickly entered the portal. That was right. William would never want to come here again. It was too much of a bully. He did not treat himself as an elf. His health bar had dropped by half. When Camelot saw his granddaughter's pitiful expression, he did not show it. He calmly waved his hand, and the temporary teleportation portal was closed. Meanwhile, the teleportation portals connecting Annie's house and the palace collapsed at the same time. As a result, the fast passage between Moonlight Island and the City of Dawn was completely cut off. The atmosphere in the space was chaotic. Until this moment, Camelot calmly said, "Levins has secretly contacted the Dark World to abolish his title as a prince. 3 days later, we will launch an all-out counterattack." When everyone heard this, they did not dare to make a sound. They hurriedly lowered their heads and agreed. The decisive battle on Moonlight Island was about to begin. A total of 200,000 Moonlight elves arrived. The City of Dawn became lively again. When William returned, he discovered that the city had changed a lot. Firstly, the Serafkin had moved their entire race here. Angel Xian must have contributed a lot. The cowardly tribe leader was powerless against the battle angel. Now, he could only hope that he could quickly advance to the advanced level and fly to the Sky City to become a true angel. Secondly, Odom had dealt with the aftermath of the battle. The only bad thing was that the City of Dawn had used up almost all of its gold coins to compensate for the casualties, as well as to repair the equipment and strategic weapons. It could be said that the small treasury of the city lord was almost empty. There were only some rare metals left. Thirdly, the king of Black Lava Dukedom hoped that the City of Dawn could assist in the management and defense of the city. The Black Lava Dukedom also wanted a hand over the management of the army to the City of Dawn. Only the private armies of the nobles would be retained. In other words, from now on, the Black Lava Dukedom would only be in charge of politics. The military affairs would be handed over to the City of Dawn. Together, they would deal with the darkness invasion. This was a political issue. There was a huge reaction among the commoners and the players' forum. But the crucial point was the nobles of the Black Lava Dukedom did not object. The remaining nobles did not dare to object when they saw that their backer did not dare to make sound. They did not even make a sound. Until now, the darkness invasion had lasted for 20 days. William finally had some free time. He decided to be stable and low-key. He would secretly develop his territory before considering other issues. It's time to take out the instant's dungeon crystal from the snow mountain of the East Sea. William stroked his chin. He suddenly thought of a good idea. He would let the players enter the Fire Dragon Instance dungeon to obtain equipment and even Fire Dragon Blood Essence. He would use contribution points, skills, and other items to exchange for the fire dragon blood essence. Doesn't that mean that I can exchange for an endless supply of fire dragon's blood without any cost? D*MN, I'm such a smart guy. William laughed mischievously. The requirement to enter the fire dragon instance dungeon was not to collect experience points, but gold coins. After all, the Lord did not have any surplus food at home. The 10 million gold coins that he had moved from the treasure vault were not enough. As for the players, they had to spend gold coins to enter the instance dungeon crystal and work for William. From there, they could exchange for hidden occupations, skills, affinity, and contribution points that they could not obtain. Chapter 238. The arrival of the 200,000 moonlight elves did not bring chaos to the City of Dawn. This was because the city belonged to a neutral faction with many races. The elves, on the other hand, felt a little uncomfortable. However, under Annie's care, there was no trouble. William said that he wanted to keep a low profile. Naturally, he would wait until the end of the darkness invasion, which was 30 days later. The most important thing now was to stabilize the power of the City of Dawn. In particular, the deceptive measures of the Black Lava Dukedom shocked countless players. The players of the Black Lava Nation were dumbfounded. Their camp no longer had any military power. All of their troops had been given to the City of Dawn. Oh my God, what kind of trick was this? It was simply unimaginable. At this moment, the Black Lava Nation forum was filled with puzzled posts. One of the girls with the name Red P on my chest was dumbfounded. I can't imagine if the king's head was kicked by a donkey or bitten by a cat. Why would he give up treatment for no reason? He doesn't have any military power. Does he think he can control all the territories in the country? Moreover, tens of thousands of winged people have joined the City of Dawn. The City of Dawn has become the most powerful force in the southeastern region. Which force in the southeastern region can resist them? The Black Lava Nation's army has been taken away. They said that they are going to undergo some kind of training. The City of Dawn has sent out the Dawn Guard Legion. This is a huge legion with tens of thousands of professionals. In name, they help to eliminate the dark creatures and maintain law and order. However, the power of the king of the Black Lava Nation only exists in name. Anyway, the players from Black Lava Dukedom were dumbfounded. Even though they had dealt with the darkness invasion, Black Lava Dukedom still had 8 legions left. They were still very powerful, but in just a few days they had surrendered to the City of Dawn on the grounds that they were unable to fight against the dark creatures. The players started to suspect that the Black Lava Kingdom was a spy for the City of Dawn. Unfortunately, there was no evidence. However, the City of Dawn's subsequent actions did not show any intention of snatching the territory of the Black Lava Dukedom. This was because the City of Dawn's army did not interfere with the operations of the city, nor did they interfere with the political trends in the nation. They did not even interfere with the players' faction missions. The Dawn army guarded the city in an orderly manner and cleared out the dark creatures. Both players and NPCs knew that William was the Lord of the City of Dawn. William also had the Dawn mercenary team, but it was obvious. What was the purpose of this mercenary group? War and money. The essence of a mercenary group in a magical era was war. For example, the Mercenary Guild, one of the top forces in the legendary continent, acted as a middleman, encouraging professionals to become mercenaries. On the other hand, the Mercenary Guild would provide mercenaries or mercenary groups with combat power to the person who issued the mission. However, regardless of whether it was a single mercenary or a large mercenary group, they were actually not considered a big force. This was because the vast majority of their goals were war, which meant endless battles and massacres. Therefore, their development potential was limited. No matter how powerful they would not be able to become a major force. After all, the mercenaries in the real world had only gradually developed into PMCs since ancient times. This magical fantasy era was so backward. How could they have thought of such an idea? What William needed to do now was to transform. As a neutral lord, the territory of the City of Dawn was only so big. Even if he wanted to expand, he could only expand beyond the legendary continent. But now is not the right time. He had not fully developed Stormy Island, so he did not have the strength to look for more unfamiliar territories. If he wanted to participate in other main quests, or even during the war, what would he do? That was to transform the City of Dawn's regular army into PMCs. In other words, they were private military contractors. What did this mean? This meant that in the future, the Dawn Army, regular army, could accept more outsourced missions, such as maintaining public security, training soldiers, logistics, and so on. Of course, the main reason was to fight against the dark creatures and protect the country from being invaded. Why did William do this? It was because there were no other forces in the southeastern region that could compete with him. If the City of Dawn wanted to develop, progress, and become stronger, it could not just stay in one place. Not only would the Dawn mercenary team have to expand, but the regular army would also have to accept some missions that did not require much combat power. For example, when two countries were at war, the Dawn Guard Legion would not participate in any war, but they could maintain public security and prevent all kinds of rebellions. They could easily send 4 or 5 more legions to participate in the war. Was this not right? Was it comfortable? There was nothing wrong with it. Brother, quickly hire us to help you guard your home. When the Black Lava Nation and the Iron Nation were at war, there were 4 or 5 legions stationed in the rear. They were afraid that there would be trouble in the rear, but this also caused the front lines to be lacking in military strength. But with the Dawn Army, he would no longer be afraid that the base would be stolen. You guys fight, and I will help you guard the rear. But why did no country hire those mercenary teams to help guard their homes? The key was that the mercenary teams were too wild. Other than killing, they did not know how to do anything else. As for protection, it was fine to ask them to transport some things, but would they help to guard the city without any worries? Killing, raping, and plundering were all things that mercenaries could do. No one dared to trust them too much. Asking them to guard their homes? They would probably be robbed of their homes. But the Dawn Army was different. They were regular soldiers, and their duty was to guard their homes. They were in charge of public security, so there was no need to worry. They were very familiar with this. As long as they had credibility, there was no need to worry about development. Moreover, the Dawn Army would not participate in high-intensity wars, but the Dawn mercenary team could. As the largest Dawn mercenary team in the southeastern region, there were hundreds of thousands of chosen ones. They could fight any kind of war, and the players were not afraid of death. Now, the hundreds of thousands of players were supported by William's missions in the City of Dawn, allowing the players to obtain experience and gold coins. But this was not a long-term solution. Sooner or later, the players would get tired of the City of Dawn. When they became stronger, they would definitely go out and explore. But this would mean that they would leave the City of Dawn faction. Prince William could not take it anymore. After all, there were more and more players, and this was the beginner's village. Therefore, there was no external threat to his territory. Lord William was going to carry out a bold and decisive transformation plan. The regular army and mercenary teams under his name would be renamed the Dawn Guard Legion and the Dawn Sharpblade Legion. The regular army would be in charge of defense, while the players would be in charge of offense. Of course, the Black Lava Dukedom's method could not be replicated. This was because William had secretly controlled the Black Lava Dukedom. That was why the Black Lava Dukedom could give up all its military forces. Otherwise, even the most powerful security mission would not make a nation give up all its military forces and hope that an outsourced legion could protect the entire nation. The City of Dawn was slowly transforming. This kind of thing could not be rushed. After all, some things had to be discussed. Therefore, he called Roderick, the messenger of the Southeastern Region Mercenary Guild, to the City of Dawn. In the conference hall, when they met again, Roderick laughed heartily and gave William a bear hug. William pushed him away with a look of disdain. Then, he held a glass of wine and smiled. "I haven't seen you for more than half a year. Have you become an advanced professional?" "I'm nothing. Not only is Lord William powerful, but his power is also second to none in the southeastern region." Roderick gave a thumbs up and said emotionally. Then he smiled and continued. "Oh yes, why did you call me here? If you did not inform me in advance, I would have carried my luggage to the southeastern region." "Nothing much. I just wanted to give a suggestion to the Mercenary Guild. William smiled mysteriously. What suggestion? Roderick frowned slightly. Guard Legion or Mercenary Guard? Let me introduce them to you. You will understand after listening to them. They will definitely increase the number of missions for the Mercenary Guild. William laughed and started throwing watermelons. He did not believe that Roderick would not pick up the watermelons. Or rather, the Mercenary Guild was definitely going to pick up the watermelons. Because the development of the Mercenary Guild was already saturated. They needed a new model of mission development. And as the first person to give such a suggestion, William would definitely receive attention and attention. It could even be said that, in the future, any type of mission related to this type of mission would probably be based on what the Dawn Guard Legion did. Chapter 239. Outsourcing. Yes, outsourcing. Do you know what the country cares about the most? William slammed the table and asked. Roderick was confused. He asked in a daze, gold coins? You have no foresight. William glanced at him in disdain. Then, he said, of course it's talents. We're talents. Every profession that could step into the higher ranks, every outstanding mage, every wise man, they were all talents. But what will war bring? Death. Countless deaths. Then, those talents will fall prematurely. But what about outsourcing? We can attack and defend. The country only needs to pay a small amount of gold coins. They don't need to do anything after that. Otherwise, if the regular soldiers die in battle, how much compensation will they have to pay? Roderick's mouth twitched. You're too far-sighted. How can a country outsource any war, especially when the strength of mercenaries isn't that great? In a real war, they will never be the main force. So, you have to have foresight. Now, the mercenary teams are a group of lawless executioners. They are willing to sacrifice their lives for money. It seems that the Mercenary Guild can control them easily, but in fact, they can't do anything big. Their prices are very low, and the commission you get is very little. But the City of Dawn can outsource any mission. That's right, we can accept all missions. And this model is diversified, and multi-model super mercenary team. William struck the iron while it was hot and boasted again. Roderick was completely immersed in the future of the diversified mercenary team. After 5 or 6 minutes, he woke up in a daze and said, You and the Black Lava Dukedom outsource missions? Of course. How can a neutral force like me occupy the territory of a human country? William laughed and said, The king of the Black Lava Dukedom is tired of fighting. In addition, the endless dark creatures seemed to have scared him out of his wits. So, he outsourced the mission of protecting the nation to the City of Dawn. That's incredible. Roderick could not believe it, but it was the truth. The Black Lava Dukedom Legion was not handed over to the City of Dawn. It was disbanded on the spot. But what else could a group of regular soldiers do besides being soldiers? Would they return home to shovel fields or become mercenaries? This group of muscular men thought about it and decided to continue being soldiers. Hence, besides a portion of professionals who were no longer soldiers, the rest followed the Legion commander and joined the City of Dawn. Of course, if the City of Dawn wanted to accept so many soldiers, it must have been planned. All the officials in the legions had secretly pledged their allegiance to the City of Dawn. Otherwise, it would not have been so easy for the City of Dawn to recruit so many soldiers. After Roderick talked with William for a long time, he excitedly left the City of Dawn. He was probably going to report to the headquarters. After all, this matter was of great importance, and he couldn't afford to waste time. If he could really bring a new revenue model to the mercenary union, the benefits he would gain would not be small. Roderick also understood that if the headquarters agreed to this method and used the reputation of the City of Dawn as a guarantee, he would become William's exclusive contact. This was because Roderick had another purpose, which was to replicate William's multiple employment missions and spread them to other mercenary groups. As for how many mercenary groups would be able to understand it, it would depend on what kind of person those mercenary group leaders were. However, the Mercenary Guild was not fighting for a short period of time, but for a long period of time. Thousands of years had passed. This multiple employment model could be considered a century-long plan, and the City of Dawn would be the first to take the lead. 1 week later, William received a reply. The Mercenary Guild would be the guarantor of the reputation of the City of Dawn, allowing it to accept all kinds of employment missions. William had to come up with a detailed plan to explain in detail how this model would work. After Roderick went back and repeated it, the person in charge of the Mercenary Guild headquarters was a little confused. Although they knew that this model seemed to be able to make a lot of money, how could it be done? The Mercenary Guild still did not understand. The key was that many mercenary groups operated in a very simple way. Just do it. This was the operating model of all the mercenary groups. Besides killing people and transporting some items, they did not know how to do anything else. Therefore, the Mercenary Guild had to replicate this model and spread it. But how effective would it be? The Mercenary Guild itself knew that it would not be very effective. The leaders of the Mercenary Guild were basically uncouth men. They would definitely not be able to carry out such a multi-mode operation. It would probably take many years before a new mercenary group could do this. Perhaps the Mercenary Guild would have to spend a lot of effort to nurture such diverse mercenary groups. After all, not every mercenary group started out as a neutral lord. Of course, the Mercenary Guild would also give other benefits. For example, if the Dawn mercenary team established a base in other forces, they would receive strong support from the Mercenary Guild. They would also help to expand the missions. Some high-quality missions would be prioritized over the Dawn mercenary team. More importantly, the Mercenary Guild would take the initiative to request for some defensive missions and hand them over to the Dawn mercenary team. They would slowly publicize these missions and inform all the countries that mercenary groups could also accept such defensive missions. But these agreements had to be developed step by step. After all, they could not take too big of a step. Otherwise, they would easily retreat to the egg. The carefree Prince William finally saw the strategy to attack the Fire Dragon Instance dungeon on the forum. He also saw that someone had dropped normal quality dragon's blood. That player had sold it to a rich player at a high price in cash. The first appearance of the dragon's blood made the Fire Dragon Instance dungeon even more popular. Since the dragon's blood has appeared and the strategy to attack the instance dungeon is available, it's time for me to collect the dragon's blood. William immediately published the written announcement. Some players in the mercenary group immediately saw the announcement. Gosh, Prince William wants to collect dragon's blood. Level 1 remnant pages of an epic secret manual can be exchanged for 100 drops of epic dragon's blood. Level 1 remnant pages of a legendary secret manual can be exchanged for 100 drops of legendary dragon's blood. Not only can we use the remnant pages of a secret manual, but we can also exchange for equipment and contribution points. But other than the remnant pages of the secret manual, exchanging for anything else will be a loss. As expected of Wei the Exploiter, he doesn't give us any loopholes. Needless to say, Prince William is a landlord of the old era. He belongs to the kind that should be shot to death. He only knows how to cheat money and experience points. But the remnant pages of the secret manual still have to be exchanged. After all, how many people can afford to exchange for them with contribution points? Speaking of which, if you guys are lucky enough to drop the dragon's blood, what do you plan to exchange for? A male player called Unattached smiled wretchedly. Of course, I'll exchange for contribution points to increase my position. I'll strive to become a core member as soon as possible so that Prince William can give me a wife. Brother, that's good. But even if the team leader gives you a wife, it's useless if you can't get 1,000 affinity points. Unattached gradually sank into deep thought. Yes, even if he gave her a wife, it would take him half a year to get her. At that time, he would have to look at his beautiful wife every day and not be able to touch her. If he was cuckolded by another NPC, it would be terrible. Not only would his penis be stifled, but his head would also emit a green halo. Because don't say, there were really players who were cuckolded by NPCs. Players and NPCs could be in a relationship, but because of the affinity points, the players could not do anything for a period of time. They were actually cuckolded by another NPC. Chapter 240. On the 29th day of the Darkness Invasion, in version 2.0, other than the southeastern region of the legendary continent, All the other forces that were surrounded by the darkness invasion had fallen. Not a single small duchy, neutral force, or race could survive the darkness invasion. On this day, however, not only had the player forums fallen silent, but even the top powers of the 9 continents were in disbelief. When many players opened the official website, they saw the most prominent headline on the official website of gods. It was a list of the darkness invasion's attacks. At this moment, the hundreds of names on the list had all turned black. Only the southeast region was still shining. The City of Dawn was ranked first, while the Black Lava Dukedom was ranked second. There was no one in third. Both of them had the word victory written behind them. What is this? This was not a Pyrrhic victory. They had almost been annihilated by the darkness invasion. Other than the southeastern region of the legendary continent, which was controlled by the living beings of the continent, the rest of the Dark List had all fallen into the enemy's hands. There were hundreds of millions of casualties, and the losses were incalculable. But no matter what, the official website's actions had made the Chinese players proud. Of course, the Chinese players knew that they did not have any advantage in the darkness invasion. Battles were fought with brute force, and the fortifications were planned. Enemies that were too powerful were defeated by the NPCs. The City of Dawn had many trump cards and tricks, which were the key to victory. Hence, many posts about the City of Dawn appeared on various forums, because the players seemed to have discover problem. Was it possible that William Blackleaf was not only one of the main characters of version 1.0, but also the ultimate main character of version 2.0? Everything that the City of Dawn had done during the darkness invasion was worthy of the name of the City of Dawn. Without the City of Dawn, the invasion of the dark creatures would have ended in complete victory. Some even asked, if the Lord of the City of Dawn doesn't die, will he be the main character in version 3.0 and 4.0? Of course, there were people who thought so, and there were people who refuted it. His opinion was that the Lord of the City of Dawn was a neutral lord. He could not extend his influence into the continent. The next version definitely couldn't take place in the beginner's village. Then, as one of the main characters of China's version 1.0 and the final main character of the 9 continents version 2.0, he would probably slowly disappear from the player's eyes. He became a neutral lord that gradually became mediocre. He became a memory for the players, an idol for the players, and a target that the players could bully in the future. It wasn't wrong for the players to think this way. Even the Chinese players didn't refute it. This was because it was not easy to replace the boss of one's faction unless it was in the later stages of the game. Moreover, the earlier the game was, the faster the protagonist would die. After all, NPCs usually did not grow as fast as players. It could be said that even if William did not die and live to the end, the City of Dawn would belong to the players. It could only be used as a beginner's village China forum. I miss it, even though it's still far from version 3.0. Every time I remember that our novice village is the City of Dawn, I can't help but feel proud. Of course, hurry up and farm the Fire Dragon blood. Whether it's for your own use or to exchange for the remnant pages of the secret manual, it's of utmost importance. As for the contribution points, forget about it. The goal is to empty His Highness capital as soon as possible. Anyway, we probably won't be staying in the City of Dawn in the next version. Many players had the same thought. Professional players and large guilds weren't the only ones who understood this. Even ordinary players understood that the Darkness Invasion was just a prelude. It was a super quest that all players had to face when they were new players. Next, they would use the City of Dawn as a springboard to enter the center of the continent. They would participate in the main storyline of the version and countless side missions. As for William, sorry, it's just the village chief of the novice village. I've forgotten. It couldn't be helped. The players were just that realistic. William did not feel anything when he saw the players doing this. Besides the Chinese players, the players from other continents had started to interact with the Grand Duchies. After all, the small duchies had fallen due to the Darkness Invasion. They had no choice but to change their factions. There were big and small factions. The smallest faction was one's best friend, followed by one's guild, followed by one's country, followed by the entire continent, And lastly, the light and darkness factions. Among the many factions, besides the desperate darkness invasion, there were countless factions of various sizes. There were too many conflicts between the factions. It was very rare for someone to stay in the same faction for a long period of time. Unless that faction was very strong and could keep up with the game version, it would continue to create legendary events that would affect the entire continent. For example, the Temple of Light, the Palace of Darkness, the Sacred Magic Union, and the Mercenary Guild. The current goal of the City of Dawn is to become one of these top forces. It's very difficult to achieve, but we can take it slow. William saw that many players on the forum had the intention to go to the Emerald Grand Duchy. He was not too worried. After all, the aftermath of the Darkness invasion had not yet dissipated. The entire game version 2.0 was a counterattack against the Darkness invasion. However, the Chinese players were killing the dark creatures. After all, the Darkness invasion boss had been killed by William. There were no follow-up main storyline missions. The players of the City of Dawn had to complete various side missions. However, the missions that William issued usually had high rewards of experience and gold coins. The players were still earning. It was not time for them to leave the faction yet. On the balcony, William lazily lay on a rocking chair and muttered, "Crimson Blood." Crimson Blood was the main storyline title of version 3.0. However, the timeline was not that tight. There was a span of 2 years between version 2.0 and version 3.0. After version 2.0 ended, the players would go offline and update the game. The game world would develop independently for 2 years. After the magic of the 9 continents was restored, the players would come online again. What was the Crimson Blood? Or rather, the Emerald Grand Duchy had hidden itself well. The nobles, soldiers, and professionals of the Emerald Grand Duchy and the neighboring Grand Duchies were all vampires. That was right. They were vampires. They were a group of perverted nobles who sucked the blood of their slaves. They were born in the distant First Era. They were created by a blood dragon that was comparable to the gods. Of course, outsiders called them vampires. They called themselves the Blood Race. They were the slaves and descendants of the blood dragon. At the end of the First Era, after the dragon race left the continent, the blood race hid in the gods' continent. Although there were often rumors of vampires, few people had seen them. That was because this group of old and undying fellows were now in high positions and had become great nobles of the human race. Not only were they powerful, but their influence was also extremely powerful. For example, in the Emerald Grand Duchy, besides the commoners and slaves, most of the professionals with high combat power were vampires. What a troublesome opponent. William could not help but feel a headache when he thought about the abilities of the vampires. The vampires had many tricks up their sleeves. For example, they could use bats to escape and suck blood to recover their health points. Even if they did not suck blood, they had super fast recovery abilities. Besides being afraid of various light and thunder attribute attacks, the vampires had no weaknesses. Version 3.0 is still far away. I'll take it slow. William scratched his head. He thought of the blood dragon and suddenly remembered that he still had a dragon egg in the hands of Moses. Gosh, did he eat it? William suddenly stood up and hurried to the fortune-telling shop. Chapter 2:41. Pom, pom, pom. Creak. After William knocked on the door, he pushed it open and entered. He was afraid that Moses would really eat the dragon egg. Even if he ate it, whether it was fried, roasted, or fried, the 3 good citizens of the foodie empire would have a great say. How could he miss out on eating the dragon egg? If Moses ate it secretly and did not leave any for him, it would be too much. William would definitely reprimand him. That's not right. It's a good dragon egg. Why must I eat it? After William pushed the door open, he glanced at the cat. He did not even look at it. He entered the alternate dimension. Meow. The black cat was bewildered. Did William ignore him? Did he even greet him in the past? But the moment William entered the alternate dimension, he was stunned. This was because the area around the alternate dimension was originally filled with bookshelves and various experimental equipment. But these things were all gone. There was only one dragon egg left on the bonfire, and it had been roasting for who knew how long. It's an illusion. William rubbed his eyes. In the next second, he understood. It was not an illusion. Moses sat on a chair and floated in midair. From time to time, he rotated the dragon egg, as if he was afraid that it would not be roasted evenly. The corners of William's mouth twitched. He did not have any hope. The dragon egg was roasted red, and it would be ready to be eaten soon. It was useless to complain about Moses now. It was better not to say it in hindsight. Oh, it took you so long to think of the dragon egg. But you're too late. The dragon egg is almost cooked. It's a pity that you can't eat it secretly. Moses yawned and smiled. What could William say? But he still used his insight. Dragon egg attributes? Quality, legendary. Position level, nut status. Extremely high temperature, status. Incubating? William's eyes widened. It could only be incubated by fire. Was this a fire dragon egg? It did not make sense. Fire dragon eggs were red, but this egg was black. It looked like a black dragon egg. The black dragons here were different from the black dragons in D&D. They did not spit acid, and their main attack method was the dark element. Moses glanced at him and chuckled. You can also tell that it's about to hatch. Did you have the intention to kill me just now? No. I was just thinking that if you really roasted it, I would be able to eat some of it. William pouted. How could a mere dragon be compared to Moses? William was still able to differentiate the importance of this matter. Say, what kind of dragon is this? William was a little curious. This dragon was not a fire dragon, and it needed to be roasted to hatch. This proved that it had fire attributes. But he was sure that it did not only have fire attributes, but it might also have other abilities. Otherwise, the Moonlight Elves would not have treated it like a treasure and kept it in their treasure house. Who knows? It must be a mutant dragon. We'll know when it comes out. Moses glanced at William and said, A newborn dragon will shout out its true name. Don't give it a chance. Cast soul control on it. Once it's under complete control, give it a name. Will that work? William was speechless. Didn't they say that a dragon that could not shout out its true name was useless? No problem. The main purpose of it shouting out its true name is to awaken its inherited memories. After you control it, it doesn't matter if you give it a name. Also, I'll take the opportunity to extract its inherited memories and make some changes before inserting the name. Moses said nonchalantly, but William was scared out of his wits. What kind of trick was this? William glanced at the dragon egg that was a few meters tall. Why would he do such a thing to such an ignorant and adorable dragon? Yes, let's do it. Moses was still using magic flames to roast the dragon egg. William glanced at the wood that formed the fire. It was legendary sycamore wood. TSK, you're so generous. You even have sycamore wood from the Phoenix race. William pondered for a while. The value of sycamore wood was extremely high. Other than sycamore trees that could be found in the habitat of the Phoenix, sycamore trees were very rare in the wild. Sycamore wood was very valuable to fire element professionals. It was easy to find a sycamore tree and a few sets of fire element legendary equipment. Isn't this a coincidence? I know a wild sycamore tree, but there's something living on the tree. It's a dragon with the bloodline of the fire dragon. Although it's very powerful, it's not as powerful as the phoenix or the giant dragon. William was thinking about the location of the tree when he heard a strange sound. Crack, crack, crack. Cracks gradually appeared on the dragon egg that was engulfed in flames. A pitch-black and sharp claw tore apart the dragon egg. Gradually, the little creature inside used its head to push against the cracks and try to crawl out. Both of them watched quietly. Moses had also dissipated his magic flames. They watched the birth of a dragon together. Crack, crack. As time passed, a black dragon had appeared. The two horns on its head were slightly protruding. It opened its cautious golden eyes and glanced at both of them expressionlessly. Then, it used all its strength to crawl out of the dragon egg. Plop! The little dragon fell to the ground. It shook its naked body and looked up at the huge dragon egg. Suddenly, two streams of white gas appeared from its nostrils. It was so infuriating. How was it going to eat such a big meal for its first meal? The little black dragon wagged its tail and bit at the dragon egg. Crack, The super hard dragon egg almost broke its teeth. The little black dragon was so angry that it bared its fangs and brandished its claws. But it charged forward again. It was as though it wanted to eat the dragon egg, even if it had to risk its life. William and Moses looked at each other. There was a huge question mark in their eyes. What the heck? A 5-meter tall dragon egg? It gave birth to a 50-centimeter small black dragon? What the heck? Ahem. Is there more than one dragon egg? How many are inside? What do you think? Moses was speechless. Who knew how such a big dragon egg could give birth to a small trash dragon? And the strangest thing was that the little black dragon did not call out its real name. Instead, it feasted on the dragon eggshell. William's expression gradually became sluggish. Fortunately, he was not anxious. He could wait. Hence, one day and one night passed. The little black dragon finally finished eating the 5-meter tall dragon egg. It lay on the ground motionlessly with its round belly. It was no different from a domestic sow that had eaten its fill. It was like a pig without wings. Ahem, little thing, don't you have a real name? William picked up a parasol tree stick and poked the little black dragon. Ayo! The little black dragon suddenly turned its head and bit on the parasol tree stick. Crack! The little black dragon opened its mouth with an ugly expression. 3 of its teeth were nailed to the parasol tree stick and could not be pulled out. Damn, I'll control it first. Even if it's a stupid dragon, it's still a dragon. William used soul control. The little black dragon felt its soul being torn apart before it returned to its body. Until this moment, it could not help but widen its eyes in fear as it looked at the 2 servants. This was not what they had agreed on. It was supposed to be their god, and they were supposed to be servants that provided food for it. Why was this happening? Were the servants attacking it? Moreover, they were asking him to call out his real name. Should I call you Grandpa? His throat was choked by the eggshell. How would he call out his real name? Ayo, 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 ayo. Father, mother, the servants are rebelling. Quickly lead the army and exterminate these human servants. Chapter 242. Ding dong. Prompt. As you have traumatized this creature, the mark of soul control has been completely imprinted in the depths of his soul. He will forever be controlled by you. He will occupy 4/4 of the soul control slots. Just 100 times and it's done. It's so easy. William smiled in disdain. He glanced at the dazed little black dragon, who was lying on the ground and drooling nonstop. He had almost become an idiot. It's useless. It doesn't last long. Moses was speechless as he looked at William. William had used 100 times of soul control to successfully imprint a dragon that did not have a level. Was this something to be proud of? William had 4 soul control slots: Bloody Crusher, Brew, Silverback Ape Boss, Thunder Horse King, and this little black dragon. As for Marquis Chris, he had been removed when the Black Lava Nation sought refuge with the City of Dawn. But Marquis Chris' memory was not lost. He knew that he was unable to go against the general trend. He was lucky that William did not kill him. He did not dare to rebel. At least his Marquis title was preserved. That was better than anything else. In his heart, serving his master, William, was the most important thing right now. After all, the psychological trauma was too serious for dragons. William did not dare to raise them as pets. Because dragons were born with instinctive and inherited memories, they were ungrateful. It was better to contract them or use soul control. Otherwise, it would be difficult to get along with dragons for a long time. Of course, silver dragons were an exception. After a few minutes, William saw that the little black dragon had recovered, but it was still trembling. It looked at William with its adorable eyes, as if it had been greatly wronged. Buddy, do you know what soul control is? I know everything you're thinking about. William stretched out his hand and pinched the black dragon's neck. He lifted it up and gave it another beating. I'm your servant? Humans are all servants? You asked your dragon parents to eat me. Oh. You even brought millions of giant dragons to destroy me? Do you think this is the first era of the dragon race? Look at me. William cursed. When he was about to give the black dragon a second beating, he suddenly stopped. When Moses heard William's words, he seemed to understand something. He gave William a look, indicating for him to settle the matter quickly. The prince did not stand on ceremony. He picked up the dying little black dragon again and said bluntly, "From now on, your name is Sicario." The little black dragon chose not to call me that. This name seemed pretty good, but I didn't want to call it that. "Pa!" William slapped the small black dragon, causing it to spin in circles. "Are you going to scream or not?" "No." The little black dragon continued to choose stubbornness. "What's there to be afraid of? Bullying me is just death waiting for me. Yours truly isn't convinced." "Pa! Pa 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 pa!" Roar. Before the next slap descended, the little black dragon extended a swollen claw, indicating that the Lord should stop. "Awoo, Sicario!" The little black dragon gave in. Of course, he still accepted it verbally, but he was still cursing in his heart. However, the moment the dragon acknowledged its name, a complete set of memories emerged from the depths of its soul. That was also in that instant. Moses attacked decisively. Time and space froze almost at the same time. The little black dragon and William remained motionless. Time magic. As an all-round enchanter, Moses wasn't just a joke. His control of time magic was far superior to other time enchanters. After all, it was too difficult to control time. A normal time enchanter could only speed up or slow down time, and the range was not large. However, Moses' control of time was beyond the imagination of ordinary people. He could instantly freeze time in a small area. After Moses used the time freeze, he did not remain idle. He quickly extracted the soul of the little black dragon. He found the memory inheritance at a glance. It had to be known. The memory inheritance of the great dragon race was extremely precious and confidential. It would only appear for a short period of time when the great dragon was born and its true name was called out. The great dragon would then be bestowed with the memory inheritance. At other times, others would not be able to pry into the great dragon's memory inheritance. This greatly reduced the chances of losing the great dragon's memory inheritance. After all, the birth of a young dragon was usually very safe. Even if the dragon egg was picked up by others, it might not hatch successfully. Even if it hatched, there would not be a time enchanter. After all, time enchanters were not cabbages. They were rarer than great dragons. But who would have thought that the City of Dawn had an insane all-round enchanter? Moses once again used a series of soul magic that others could not understand. After 7 or 8 seconds, the soul of the black dragon returned to its body. In the next moment, William did not feel anything. At that moment, the black dragon also accepted the changed memory inheritance. On the other hand, the prince discovered a problem. Moses was suddenly panting and his face was slightly red. He did not know what strange thing he had just done. It was a pity. The Lord did not dare to make a sound. He did not dare to think too much. But if he knew that Moses had used the time freeze and pause time for 7 or 8 seconds, he would definitely open his mouth and say, "Time stop, DRP." However, Moses did not intend to explain too much. He was really very tired. Moreover, he had obtained many things from the memory inheritance of the little black dragon. He waved his hand and let William take the little black dragon away. William nodded obediently. He grabbed the little black dragon by the neck and was about to leave. But in the next second, he suddenly heard a sentence. "Take good care of this dragon. Let him grow up quickly. In the future, I will need a lot of dragon blood." The corners of William's mouth twitched. The little black dragon struggled and kicked his legs. He strongly protested. "I'm not convinced. Kill me if you can." "Pa!" Another slap flew over. The little black dragon was listless again. He discovered a problem. He had lost a lot of memories of his parents and tribe members. He only had the instinctive memory of the humans as servants. It was a deep impression. D*MN, a servant lied to me. My memory inheritance is incomplete. William ignored the little dragon. He grabbed the dragon's head and ignored its flailing legs and wings. He walked step by step back to the city lord's mansion. But, along the way, the players who saw this scene were stunned. "Gosh, great dragon. I've used my insight. It's really a living great dragon." William did not need the players to use their insight. He could use it himself. Sicario, legendary, race, dust dragon, level 3, juvenile, Position level, endowment. Young dragon's bite, endowment. Young dragon's roar, mental intimidation effect. It's useless now, endowment. Young dragon's breath, fire element. Endowment. Young dragon's life. Each physical strength point equals 20 health points. Endowment. Young dragon strength. Each physical strength point equals 20 endurance points equals 1 attack power. Endowment. Young dragon. Health points, 1820 endurance points, 1100 power, 55 physical strength, 91 agility, 41 intelligence, 38 others. That was right. A level 3 legendary great dragon that had just eaten its eggshell had 1820 health points, and its endowment was 2 times more than William's. This was why William had always said that killing a legendary great dragon was 100 times more difficult than killing a legendary NPC of the same level. William had the ability to challenge a legendary NPC of the same level. But when he thought about how many legendary and epic players had killed the fire dragon, he would understand, but is it really that powerful? William still did not dare to believe it. More importantly, this was a twilight dragon. It was an extinct twilight dragon at the end of the First Era. It was the death dragon of Cronus in William's previous life. Chapter 243. William carried the little black dragon all the way home and casually threw him out. The little black dragon fell to the ground and spun. He felt dizzy. He did not dare to run around as he was panicking. At least the black dragon did not have the intention to kill him. But the others were different. When the black dragon walked by, many human servants were drooling. If he was thrown out by the servant, a group of burly men would rush up and eat him alive. More importantly, soul control was not an illusion. That was terrible. Whether the little black dragon was submissive or not, he had to suck up to his master. Otherwise, he would be beaten up. He had never been bullied like this in his life. The little black dragon spread his wings and wobbled to William's side like a little penguin. He rubbed his head against William's thigh and looked up with his fierce golden eyes. He wanted to pretend to be cute. William did not have time to care about the black dragons sucking up to him. He was thinking about the origin and abilities of the dusk dragons. According to some legends, the dusk dragons had appeared in the mythological era. They were very powerful and seemed to be able to master 2 types of dragon language magic. Moreover, every dusk dragon had different abilities. For example, the little black dragon in front of him. When he was born, he had already awakened the fire element. But his second element was not known. The little black dragon seemed to have a telepathic connection. He howled at the sky and spewed out a 1-meter-long dragon's breath. The little black dragon's eyes lit up as if he had discovered a new toy. He spewed the dragon's breath into the air. Howl! 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 There were flames everywhere in the large living room, but coincidentally, nothing was sprayed by the flames. After all, William had told him that if he dared to spray the dragon's breath onto any furniture, bed, or ornaments, he would use a steel spear to stab himself and roast him. Therefore, the little black dragon could only breathe fire into the air to vent his anger. But not long after, Sicarian walked over and opened his mouth. He used his small claws to point inside. Hungry. The little black dragon nodded. He was really hungry. The eggshell was not enough to satisfy his stomach. Then let's start. William grabbed him by the neck and ignored his flailing legs. He went straight to the magical bee slaughterhouse and threw him up. The little black dragon's eyes went wide. Wang Defa. A mountain of food was placed right in front of him. To be more precise, this slaughterhouse was a skinning yard. It was filled with the corpses of magical beasts that had their bones pulled out and their skins plucked out. They were originally meant for the soldiers to eat, but the little black dragon didn't care. He jumped onto a magical beast corpse and began to gorge himself on it. He glanced at the smiling servant again, and his impression of him gradually increased. He was right. A servant was a servant. Regardless of whether he wanted to control him or not, he would definitely feed him. Many of the hunters who were peeling off the skin could not help but gulp and ask, "Sir, what is this little monster? A dragon? When he's full, send it over to me. Be careful not to get bitten by him." William didn't care what the little guy was thinking. The dragon race possessed instinctive memories and inherited memories. The instinctive memories were personally instilled by the great dragon parents. This little guy thought that humans were all servants and that his parents had countless giant dragon armies. Needless to say, this little bastard was an egg left behind from the first era. Why did the Moonlight Elves not hatch it? William could think of 3 reasons. First, there was no suitable way to control it. After all, not all soul mages had soul control. This skill was extremely rare as soul sacrifice. Second, the Moonlight Elves weren't like the City of Dawn. Moonlight Island was located in the center of the legendary continent. The sudden appearance of an extinct dust dragon would definitely attract the attention of many great dragons. The Moonlight Elves might not be able to raise this dragon well, and the possibility of it being forcibly taken away was very high. Third, this egg had just been picked up and had not had the time to hatch. It should have just been obtained. According to Moses, the magic formation in the treasure vault has a transformation function. It should be used to dispel the evil energy of the little black dragon. It had to be known. There were many types of dragons in the gods' continent. Other than a few silver dragons, gold dragons, and bronze dragons, most of the great dragons were difficult to get along with. Because the great dragons were born with evil and evil energy, they could not be completely tamed. But anything was possible. The transformation magic formation was one of the methods, but it required a long time. William's soul control was one of the methods he used. While William was pondering how to raise the little black dragon in the future, the forum of the City of Dawn exploded again. Many people posted posts with videos or screenshots, saying that His Highness had probably raised a dragon. Oh my god, it's really a great dragon. It's a dusk dragon with legendary bloodline. Can you explain to me what a dusk dragon is? TSK. It's not a pure D&D system, so there's no way to explain it. I can only say that it's a unique dragon in the God's continent. TSK. I thought that Prince William was going to die. I didn't expect him to be so energetic. Even if he raised a dragon, is he going to turn it into a dragon knight? Speaking of dragon knights, I think of small dragons don't drive. Many posts on the forum have been banned. The forum is about to collapse. Everyone be careful. Chu Yochio appeared out of nowhere and disappeared. But no matter how shocked and curious the players were, they did not dare to barge into the City Lord's palace to take a look. William's dragon was not closely related to the players, because it took a long time for a dragon to form its combat power. They suspected that by the time this dragon became legendary, Lord William would be dead. But if Prince William raises a dragon, does it mean that the dragon's blood will be available in the future? You're all devils. In version 2.0, you might not even be able to draw dragon's blood. But if this dragon can bleed, I'll be the first to buy it. The players gradually shifted their attention to the dragon's blood. For a moment, Little Black, who was stuffing himself with food, gradually fell into a daze. He could sense the malice in the dark. It seemed that when he grew up, he would face endless torture. Hence, after eating more than 25 kilograms of magical beast meat, he lay motionless on the ground with his round belly. He rubbed his belly with his small claws, as if to help with digestion. After all, dragons. If he wanted to eat, he could keep eating. His stomach was like a different dimension. He could digest as much as he ate. When someone brought the small black dragon over, William could not help but raise his eyebrows. He was already level 5. He was indeed a glutton. Of course, dragons could not keep eating to become stronger. Otherwise, they would be too awesome. Needless to say, the small black dragon had fallen into a deep sleep. Dragons slept after eating. After sleeping, they would eat again to become stronger. But there was an additional step. It was a very complicated step. It was a step that countless races were envious of. But if William wanted the black dragon to become stronger quickly, it was not impossible. He could kill magical beasts of advanced and devour magical crystals. William narrowed his eyes. He had to do something. Chapter 244. William did not let the negative comments on the forum disrupt his expansion and long-term plans. The City of Dawn continued to develop like a raging fire. It was the 30th day of the Darkness Invasion. As the Serafkin and Black Lava Dukedom had surrendered to William, the regular army was greatly replenished. Regular army strength, 72,000 soldiers, a total of 24 legions, collectively known as the Dawn Garrison Legion. Reserve military strength, 36,000 soldiers Dawn Mercenary Team, 180,000 Chosen Ones, and 13,000 NPCs, collectively known as the Dawn Sharpblade Legion. And this was just the beginning. William believed that in the near future, the regular army would become more numerous and stronger. He had too many sources of soldiers. The Black Lava Dukedom, the Serafkin, the Moonlight Elves, and even the Blackleaf Elves. In the afternoon, the sun was shining brightly. There were no clouds in the sky. On the eastern city wall of the City of Dawn, William wore a simple long robe. He sat on a chair made of magical beast fur. His legs were placed on the city wall as he lazily watched the players running around. The players who wanted to become stronger were very busy and hardworking. The players who wanted to be idle had a leisurely life. The players who wanted to become stronger and did not want to be separated from the main force had to complete the daily missions of the Dawn Mercenary Team, including the daily mission to kill the dark creatures. If these creatures were not killed, they would be a threat. There were still tens of thousands of dark creatures in the Massacre Plains. Some of the Devil's Dens that had not been destroyed were still releasing dark creatures from afar. Therefore, it was basically impossible to kill all of these fellows and kill them all. Secondly, the Dawn Fortress and the Fire Dragon Instance Dungeon. No one went to the Misty Valley Instance Dungeon anymore. With the wild dark creatures, the drop rate was much higher than in the Instance Dungeon. The main purpose of the players in the Dawn Fortress Instance Dungeon was to earn money and equipment. Then, they would spend the money earned on the Fire Dragon Instance Dungeon. That was right. The players had found a reasonable way to earn money. When William saw this scene, he finally revealed a gratified smile. It was not easy for the lambs to comb their hair. Many players had obtained the blood of the Fire Dragon. They used it for themselves or exchanged it for secret manuals. Many strategies had appeared on the forum. One of the easiest ways was to open a legendary difficulty group. As long as they gathered 3,000 intermediate professionals with decent equipment, they could join forces with Augustine and the other bosses to bring the Fire Dragon down to critical health. After that, they would launch a counterattack against Augustine and the hundreds of bounty hunters. Then, they would quickly kill off the Fire Dragon. That way, they would be able to clear this instance dungeon. Otherwise, if the Fire Dragon rushed out of the barrier, the players would still be working for nothing. They would only be able to watch as the City Lord snatched the Fire Dragon's head with a single move. However, it was not easy to form a team of 3,000 people every time. After all, the most important issue was how to distribute the dragon blood after it was released. The legendary difficulty Fire Dragon Instance Dungeon dropped a lot of equipment: dragon scales, dragon meat, dragon bones, dragon teeth, dragon tendons, and various other materials. Recently, someone had even found the location of the Fire Dragon's treasure trove. Even if the items at the front were exchanged for gold coins, they would only be able to share the soup with the 3,000 players, earning back the 1 gold coin they had spent to enter the dungeon. But the most maddening thing was the dragon's blood. The legendary sub will drop 100 to 300 drops of epic dragon blood. There is a 20% chance of 100 drops of legendary dragon blood. In other words, the maximum amount of dragon blood that could be dropped in a legendary difficulty dungeon could only be used by 4 people. There was also a completion rate in the dungeon, which meant that the smaller the number of players who died, the more dragon blood they could obtain. However, the current players could not beat the dungeons of other difficulties. They could only rely on the legendary difficulty to make use of the player's resurrection bug to barely achieve victory. How could they obtain completion rates? Fortunately, they had 100 drops of epic dragon blood as a guarantee. Otherwise, it would be a huge loss. A total of 3,000 players had to start a team just for one person's dragon blood. What compensation should the players who did not get it get? This was something that the guild leader had to solve. In the past 2 days, a guild called Misty Rain Pavilion with 30,000 people made a big fuss because of the dragon blood. One of the reasons was that in Misty Rain Jiangnan, They actually gave a dragon blood that dropped to their game wife cough. There was no need for too much drama. In short, some high-level players who worked hard but did not get any benefits decided to leave the guild with a large group of friends. As a result, the guild leader's wife was unhappy. She saw the guild members talking about her, saying that she was the cause of this problem. As a result, she brought her male best friend to apologize to one of the players who had caused trouble. She did not manage to apologize. She was infuriated when she saw it. Then, she slashed at the player violently. She only stopped after killing him 6 times. That player was unlucky. He died 6 times and lost half of his equipment. His combat power was reduced from a first-rate player to a 9th-rate player. Now, the player who had been killed was writing posts on the forum. It's starting. A player suddenly shouted at the east gate of the City of Dawn. TSK. There's so many people. I can't make a name for myself. A player named I Love Trouble sighed sadly. Yeah, the city lord is also on the city wall. Does he also want to see the guild war? Prince William is a salted fish. Recently, he has been sunbathing at the balcony of the city lord's palace or on the city wall. I guess he wants to find a place where the sunlight is poisonous. After all, he's a salted fish. Both sides of his body must be equally salty. Haha. How do you know that Prince William is sunbathing at the balcony? Did you take a screenshot? My friend told me. He wanted to take a photo, but Prince William discovered him and zoomed in. Prince William raised his middle finger, and my friend received tens of thousands of thunder damage points. His health points were less than 3,000, and it was enough for him to die many times. He died immediately. William raised his eyebrows. He did not say anything, but he silently remembered the guy's name and the guy who dared to take a photo of him. He would think of a way to beat them up in the future. But then again, he had really come to the east gate to watch the battle. The guards of the City of Dawn had requested that as long as they did not enter the city to fight, no one would care about how the chosen ones challenged each other. The west gate was a one-on-one duel zone. The south gate was an official road. Bystanders were not allowed to fight there. The east gate was a duel zone. Guilds, small groups, and family organizations of all sizes would challenge each other at the east gate. They would fight to the death. As for the north gate, sorry, there was no such thing. There were only 2 large city gates at the north that led to the grassland. Those were the trade routes and transportation areas. Also, to prevent the attacks of dark creatures, the gates were not opened unless necessary. Time did not drag on for long. When both sides gathered, the guild leader of the Misty Rain Pavilion was flustered and exasperated. Only 9,000 players had left the guild, but there were more than 20,000 of them. It was obvious that other guilds were stirring up trouble. There were less than 20,000 online players in the Misty Rain Pavilion, and only 15,000 of them came to fight. They were at a great disadvantage. He rode a beginner-level warhorse, Portia, and arrogantly came to the front of the shield-bearer. With a cold expression, he said, "Virtuous like water, since the open beta of the game, I have always treated you as a brother. Now, you have joined forces with the righteous adornment to fight against me?" That was right. The other players who participated in the battle were righteous adornment. They had appeared before Shanshan Roche, who had lost more than half of his equipment, could say anything. The vice president of Righteous Cute little fairy stopped him and walked out with her 36D. She raised her eyebrows and sneered. "Don't talk nonsense. If you want to fight, then fight. If not, then admit defeat." "Who are you?" Misty Rain Jiangnan's wife asked. "Shut up. I haven't mentioned that you cheated on Misty Rain Jiangnan. Furthermore, you have no right to speak. Let me tell you, Misty Rain Jiangnan, if you want to fight, just say it. If not, then admit defeat. Do you still need to fight to leave a guild? You guys are too much. We, the righteous adornment, can't take it anymore." Cute little fairy ruthlessly said. The most important point was the guild leader might have been cheated on. Misty Rain Jiangnan suddenly turned around. He saw that his in-game wife's expression wasn't too good. It was as if she had been exposed. After all, who knew if the other party had taken a picture or a video? Fight. Brothers, charge. Misty Rain Jiangnan was anxious. The other party was too much. As for the matter of him being cheated on, they would talk about it after the fight. Cute little fairy squinted her eyes and raised her staff. Righteous, adornment brothers, charge. Crush them. His Highness is on our side. The players were speechless. What side? His Highness was obviously on everyone's side. His health bar continued to drop. The battle continued. Both sides fought for more than half an hour. Many players died 6 times before they retreated. However, the righteous adornment won in the end. What about the tens of thousands of equipment drops at the East Gate? The person who killed them had the right to obtain them for 5 minutes. Then they could pick them up freely. But in the City of Dawn, the spoils of war belonged to the winner of the group battle. No one was allowed to take advantage of the other party. This was not the rule of the game. It was the rule of the City of Dawn. Many leaders of the big guilds and clubs had held a meeting. They could fight, but they could not let others look down on them. In fact, they could even cause too much internal strife. Everyone was in the City of Dawn. They were all little sheep following His Highness. They would see each other all the time. There was no need to snatch high-quality grass. But where there was a war, there would be people who would sneakily snatch equipment. It was a pity. It depended on whether one's hand speed was fast enough and whether one's legs could run fast enough. The super war between the big guilds made the players of the City of Dawn excited. They were all discussing it. But such an interesting thing had no meaning to him now. If someone asks me what's my biggest regret, I'll say, it's becoming a legendary boss. Because I can no longer play happily with my friends. The prince sighed. He squinted his eyes and looked at the horizon. Time passed again. There was a thunderous sound in the sky. A divine hall knight came from afar. When he approached the East City Gate, he slowly slowed down and stood under the East City Gate in a relatively elegant posture. He did not smash a big hole in the ground. Meanwhile, he said in a loud voice, the City of Dawn joined forces with the Southeast region to defeat the Darkness invasion. According to statistics, all the 9 continents were invaded by the Darkness. Only the legendary continent was attacked by the City of Dawn. The Temple of Light believes that the City of Dawn should be rewarded for this war. His deep and loud voice reverberated in all directions and reverberated in everyone's ears. Countless people were stunned. William leaped down from the city gate. He looked at the temple knight who had shown him respect. He respectfully bowed his head and said, "Thank you for the Temple of Light's reward. Thank you for coming all the way here." "You're welcome. It's my duty. Keep this space ring." "Take care, my lord. I have some good wine here. Why don't you bring some back?" "This is not good, beep." Prompt. Borland affinity for you increased by 90 points. Chapter 245. Borland was an epic temple knight. He did not stay in the City of Dawn for long. Before he left, he took some wine and went back. They had a good chat. After all, both of them had high political awareness. They talked about how to resist the dark creatures, maintain light and order, and many other issues. Let's see what's inside. As an outstanding youth, William had put in a lot of effort to resist the Darkness invasion. He was also the only victor, so he would definitely be rewarded. Of course, the upper echelons of the legendary continent would not show up easily. Everything would be represented by the Temple of Light. Hence, when he opened the space ring that was 20 by 20 by 20 meters, he could not help but widen his eyes. 3 million gold coins, 1 million silver coins, 3,000 magical stones, 300 magical crystals. These were all small amounts of money. The most important thing was the next few blueprints. Advanced Cannon Blueprints X6, Gunpowder Blueprints X5, Cannon Gunner Occupational Inheritance X4, Intermediate, Advanced, Grandmaster, and Epic Cannon Gunner Magical Equipment Blueprints X10-inch. This is the real deal. Bro, you're awesome. William was ecstatic. The value of the advanced cannon was self-evident, especially since it was a reward from the Temple of Light. This meant that the City of Dawn could openly use this strategic weapon. There were 6 advanced cannon blueprints. This meant that 6 blacksmiths could learn how to make cannons. The 5 gunpowder blueprints could be used as a secondary occupation to learn. The Cannon Gunner Inheritance X4 required 4 suitable professionals to learn. As for the Cannon Gunner Magical Equipment Blueprints, 10 blacksmiths could learn them. As expected, this is not a loss. It's a huge profit. After William obtained these items, he had many ideas. This was because he could dig out all the saltpeter and sulfur mines that he knew of, and he didn't have to worry about anything else. After all, the composition of gunpowder was simple: saltpeter, sulfur, and charcoal. The sulfur mines not only produced sulfur, but also sulfuric acid. These things were very valuable. As a large power, these mineral resources were indispensable. In particular, not all cannon gunners used magical equipment. Most beginner-level and middle-level cannon gunners used gunpowder guns. They did not have to worry about the power and accuracy of the guns. Of course, this also had to do with the gunpowder formula and the quality of the guns. A truly valuable cannon gunner has to reach a high level, have money, and have enough battle energy. Only then can a cannon gunner unleash its full potential. In William's previous life, he had wanted to create a new account and play as a cannon gunner. However, while this class was powerful, it was a waste of mana crystals. Magical equipment was too expensive. Only the rich and lucky could play with it. The long guns and short cannons made from magical crystals were not affordable for ordinary people. However, with a large player base, there will be no lack of tycoons and small Kryptonians. William laughed. There were more and more players in the Gods game. In the later stages of version 2.0, the number of Chinese players had reached 800,000. Among them, the newbies were like lambs that had just been born. All of them were fat, tender, stupid, and adorable. He could use the new cannon gunner occupation to slaughter them. That's right. It's decided. After digging out the saltpeter and sulfur mines, I'll immediately set up the cannon gunner occupation in the occupation hall. It's not the time for magical equipment yet, but gunpowder equipment will be enough for them. William happily handed the blueprints to the blacksmiths. As for who dared to inherit the cannon gunner occupation, William only needed to find an NPC with a higher bloodline among the recruits, and he could teach it to them. He would let them be a mentor in the occupation hall. They did not need to fight and break through enemy lines. At the same time, Odom, with a head of blonde hair, came to find him with a hammer. "Your Highness, the blueprints have been solved." "What blueprints?" William was a little confused. He had just been discussing with old Hank. After learning how to make blueprints, he would make 2 guns for him to play with. After all, guns were like pistols, rifles, and heavy machine guns. Everyone could use them. But could a normal person and a sharpshooter be on the same level? But William was rich. He was different from before. He was a rich person. Gerda Nasi's blueprints, Odom said as he licked his lips. He seemed to have discovered a huge secret. "Oh, you can say it here. Take a look. This isn't an equipment blueprint. It's an incomplete map composed of various words and symbols." Odom handed the blueprints to William. William took them. Prompt: "You have obtained an incomplete map related to the blood essence of the blood dragon." 1/4. Prompt: "You can hand the map to Emerald Grand Duchy and receive a lot of affinity points." Prompt: "You can choose to collect the incomplete map related to the blood essence of the blood dragon." The difficulty of the mission is S level. I can trigger the main mission of Emerald Grand Duchy now? William looked at the map in front of him. He could not make up his mind. In the version 3.0 of Crimson Blood, all the missions revolved around the blood essence of the blood dragon. The most important mission was the incomplete map related to the blood essence of the blood dragon. There were a total of 4 maps. One of them was in the hands of Augustine, while the other 3 were in the hands of different people. Augustine didn't die. Gerda Nasi's was the unlucky one. Hence, it's understandable that Augustine had this map. It's a pity that he didn't keep it with him. He handed the map to another blood race in exchange for more resources and expanded the Freedom Alliance. William understood Augustine's character. He would not easily give up on the food that was in front of him. Even though he had grown a lot after Gerda Nasi's death, he was still cautious. He had never taken risks. But in the early stages of version 3.0, he only appeared a few times before he left Emerald Grand Duchy. Obviously, he understood the true strength of the blood race. William also understood the blood race. But now that he was stronger, he did not want to give up on this treasure. The blood essence of the blood dragon on the map was most likely the blood essence of the first or 2 generations of the blood dragon. What did this mean? It was the blood essence of a sage blood dragon or a legendary blood dragon. It was extremely valuable. It was obvious that the Blood race wanted to snatch these items. They wanted to become stronger. Even though the legendary bloodline had reached its limit, after removing the bloodline restrictions, the top NPCs pursued the enhancement of endowments, skills, and various permanent attributes. To another dragon, the blood essence of a dragon was a great supplement. If William could obtain the blood essence of the blood dragon, his dragon would be able to level up rapidly. Even if the dragon could not reach adulthood, it would be worth it to transform from a juvenile to a young dragon. As for drinking the blood essence of the blood dragon, forget about it. He had no love for vampires. The vampire's ability to control blood was awesome. It was enough to make their enemies wish they were dead. But William still preferred to be an elf. Most importantly, elves were more handsome than blood race. Chapter 246. It was the 90th day of version 2.0. The players completed their missions, fought monsters, and fought in an orderly manner. Meanwhile, the City of Dawn was developing rapidly. Because William's prediction was correct, the Blackleaf Forest did not object to the arrival of the Moonlight Elves. Instead, they welcomed them and sent 100,000 Blackleaf Elves to the City of Dawn. They were young, and their abilities were only at the beginner and intermediate levels. However, they had great potential. This also proved one thing. Someone was indeed investing in William, but they just didn't know who it was for the time being. While the City of Dawn was developing, besides raising the dragon, William chatted with Annie and tried to get closer to her. At most, he would hold her hand. Otherwise, he would go to the fortune-telling shop to increase his popularity. Other than that, he only wandered around the City of Dawn and Stormy Island. Since he wanted to obtain the blood essence of the blood dragon, he had to make contact with the Emerald Grand Duchy. Hence, Eric became a diplomat and went to the Emerald Grand Duchy. He wanted to negotiate with the Emerald Grand Duchy. Meanwhile, a new occupation, the Cannon Gunner, appeared in the City of Dawn. Gosh, is the City of Dawn that awesome? Does it already have a cannon gunner? The foreigner was drooling with envy. I remember that the occupation hall of the Grand Duchies doesn't have a cannon gunner occupation. There are only a few cannon gunners, and they are considered hidden NPCs. They have to complete hidden missions to change occupations. The foreigner's gaze was fierce. Cannon gunners had appeared in the eyes of the players, but not a single player had successfully changed occupations. It was not that the cannon gunners did not want to teach the players their occupation. They wanted to, but they were powerless. They only had one set of equipment, and their weapons and ammunition were only enough for themselves. Furthermore, they had bought them from within the borders of the kingdom. If it weren't for the fact that their hometown was within the borders of the Grand Duchy, they wouldn't even have returned. The ammunition of the cannon gunners was extremely expensive. How could they accept a disciple for a few gold coins, drinks, and a few meals? Even if it was a woman. That was right. The cannon gunners did not accept disciples, because when one learned to be a cannon gunner, one would discover how poor they were. In fact, ever since the Darkness invasion had ended, there had been many rumors on the continent. One of them was that the Empire would allow the Grand Duchies to develop gunpowder. At that time, cannon masters would no longer be restricted. However, according to the current situation, it would take at least half a year for that to happen. During that time, the players went offline for 2 whole years, but the mana recovery happened to increase more than tenfold. The drastic change in the density of the mana had brought about a qualitative change in the entire world. Not only were there many geniuses among the NPCs, but the magical beasts were also growing rapidly, and some of the mineral resources had also increased significantly. Or in other words, the entire world was changing, and it was changing very quickly. The Empire no longer restricted the Grand Duchies from mining saltpeter and other mineral veins. They even planned to let the Grand Duchies possess artillery and other strategic weapons in order to deal with the more severe dark forces. However, no matter what, Launcher was an extremely rare hidden class for players. Even if players successfully changed their class, they might not have enough weapons and ammunition. However, the City of Dawn was different. Not only were there 2 cannon masters in the class change hall, but they could also teach basic and intermediate secret manuals. On the exchange list of the Dawn mercenary team's secret manuals, There were advanced, grandmaster, and epic secret manuals. What was more important was, be it one-handed cannons, two-handed cannons, single-barreled spears, or other weapons and ammunition, they were all on the sale list. This meant that the City of Dawn had a complete occupation system, equipment, and weapons for cannon masters. The players had cursed the cannon master's secret manuals and the exchange prices of various weapons and equipment more than 10,000 times. It was a pity. In less than 5 days, more than 30,000 cursing players had successfully changed their occupation to cannon masters. Some players from the Black Lava Dukedom had even been attracted to the City of Dawn. It cannot be helped. It was the nature of humans. No matter how much they cursed William for being a landlord, they still obediently handed over the gold coins to him. Ever since the cannon masters had officially appeared, there is a lot of discussion on the forum of the City of Dawn. A player called Laughing Blade complained, "We old players are suffering a huge loss. Those beginner players are the ones who are profiting. They can directly choose to be cannon masters, while we are all warriors and archers. It's a huge loss. Such a handsome occupation has only appeared now." Another player called, "I'm the most handsome after Prince William," retorted sourly, "No matter how handsome an occupation is, it can't be used to make a living. Moreover, not everyone is as handsome as Prince William." Recently, the performance of cannon masters in the arena has been very average. The range of the gunpowder long spear is not as long as that of the bow and arrow. The firing speed is not as fast as that of the bow and arrow. As for the close-range cannons, they are very powerful, but they are not as powerful as the warriors. In short, it's just a very mediocre occupation. What else do you want? You can fight with rangers at long range, and you have all kinds of close-range skills and cannons at close range. I'm a dual-sword warrior. When I was fighting with a cannon master, I was careless and was hit in the face by the cannon. My health points were instantly reduced by 1,500, and I died. Ahem, let's not talk about your random blocking ability. If you were a shield warrior, you wouldn't have died so tragically. But you're right. Explosive power is the specialty of cannon masters. We have to know that this is a magically modified version of cannon masters. Not only can the weapons be enchanted, but the bullets fired can also be wrapped in battle energy. Therefore, the strength of cannon masters is far from as weak as you say. Anyway, cannon masters are a profession that is still growing. Although their average performance is not very stable or outstanding, and their winning rate in the arena is also relatively low, their explosive power is really high. When they can use magic weapons, they might be the real sons of the gods. This kind of discussion did not only appear on the forum. The professional players were also discussing in private. The captain of Prosperous Millennium, Forever Alone, had just kited a cannon master to death, but he gradually discovered the excellent ability of cannon masters. Extremely explosive power. Many of the skills of cannon masters have a charging time. The longer the charging time, the higher the damage. In particular, they have different quality bullets with special effects. If they can hit the enemy, they can play a very important role. I don't know if there will be magic equipment in the next version. If that's the case, cannon masters will really be the real sons of the gods. Oh, train well as a cannon master. The club will support you. In version 1.0, the warriors and rangers were the real sons. In version 2.0, the warriors, rangers, and the gradually rising assassins were considered the three pillars of power. As for the magic occupations, they were still the younger brothers. They did not have many large-scale magic skills, unless they had hidden secret manuals. Of course, this did not include the special occupations such as temple knights and priests. But no matter what, the appearance of cannon masters made the group of magic players very sad. They did not know how long they would have to be the younger brothers. But William also wanted to say that the advanced mages would gradually become more powerful. Their large-scale magic skills would increase by many folds. By then, regardless of whether it was in team battles or instance dungeons, the magic players would be in high demand. They would be promoted from the younger brothers to the older brothers of the magic players. Even when you become a great mage, you can also be called a master mage. Cannon masters might seem powerful now, but when they entered instance dungeons and fought in prolonged battles, they would know what despair was. The consumption of ammunition and the durability of the guns were all money. This made countless cannon masters complain incessantly. Because of the occupation of cannon masters, they had two nicknames at the same time: Truth Master and Poor Master. The first meaning was that truth masters did not care about money. To them, the truth was within the firing range of the cannons. Wherever they pointed, they would die. The second meaning was that poor masters were usually slackers. They spent the entire instance dungeon slacking. They might not even be able to shoot 100 bullets in 3 hours. As for the expensive special bullets, sorry, not at all. Not even if you beat me to death. No, I have to continue to promote the power of cannon masters and let the novice players change their occupations. If you don't change your occupations, how can I earn money? William had been out of the instance dungeon and could not earn much money. It was because the other occupations did not consume as much money after their equipment was formed. But it was different for cannon masters. The ammunition they consumed could not be found anywhere else in the southeastern region other than the City of Dawn. William's hands were cramping from counting money. The more cannon masters there were, the more he would earn. If Scammer Wong did not take advantage of the fact that the players were online, when would he take advantage of the situation? Don't blame me for being ruthless. If you leave for 2 years, I will lose a source of gold coins and experience points. William silently prayed for a while. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. Come in. William raised his eyebrows and looked at Diablo, who had pushed open the door and entered. That was right. It was the war gang leader, Metal Frenzy Diablo. He was not the only one. Tyrannosaurus, who had an epic bloodline, and Wales, who had a legendary bloodline, had become one of his generals. The Black Lava Dukedom's defection was irreversible. The new advanced professionals could not adapt to the situation. Fortunately, William was handsome enough. Whether he was a man or a woman or a human, as long as he was not a dark creature, he did not have to be afraid. Even if William had smashed the statue of Lady Luck countless times, as long as Diablo had enough time, William would be able to climb up ahem. It would not be that easy. After Diablo entered the door, he hesitated for a long time before saying, "My lord, I have a request." William looked at him curiously. Both of them were advanced professionals. Besides being stronger than William in one-on-one combat, Diablo was not weak. How could he ask for help from William? William had no reason to reject him. He smiled and said, "Tell me first. If I can do it, I will definitely help you. It's like this, ding-dong. Prompt. You have obtained information for an A+ level mission, Diablo's Family History. Chapter 247. After Diablo achieved victory in the Black Lava Dukedom, he disappeared for a period of time. It was not until the Darkness Invasion that he reappeared and took up arms to protect his nation. But during the few months that he disappeared, he used the clues that he had found over the years and a few memories that he had when he was young to find his hometown, the East Sea Metropolis. It was not a nation, but a neutral territory. It was bordered by the Emerald Grand Duchy in the west and the sea in the east. The territory was comparable to that of a small duchy, but it was not much weaker than a grand duchy. The only difference was that it had fewer residents. Besides the largest East Sea metropolis, there were many cities of various sizes in the territory. They were all his private territories. Diablo's family was also a big family in the East Sea metropolis. He was loyal to Lord Bernard of the East Sea metropolis. He was a long-lived half-elf. Not only was he powerful, but he also had many loyal subordinates. But everything changed on a night 19 years ago. When a group of bats arrived, Diablo's life changed completely. His entire family died, and he was the only one who managed to escape. He wandered to the Black Lava Dukedom and became a wild child in the forest. Prompt. You have received a mission, the past of Diablo's family. He wants to find the truth behind the annihilation of his family, but he is not powerful enough and is unfamiliar with the East Sea metropolis. He hopes that you can help him. Prompt. The past of Diablo's family has a difficulty level of A+. When you complete this mission, you will obtain Diablo's eternal loyalty. Prompt. Do you accept this mission? William looked at Diablo's expectant gaze and seemed to have thought of something. He gladly accepted the mission. Thank you for your support and love. Your Highness. What do you intend to go to the East Sea metropolis? Diablo was anxious. William shook his head and comforted him. The East Sea metropolis is not as simple as you think. We have to plan this matter carefully. I have obtained a lot of magical stones. You should improve your combat power first. Even if we can find the truth, we need to avenge the annihilation of our family. You don't want me to avenge you, do you? Diablo looked at the handsome and gentle smile in front of him and shook his head. He was lost in the Lord's handsomeness again. He lowered his head and said, Your Highness is right. It's best to be able to personally deal with my enemy. I'll go back and cultivate now. I was too impatient. Hint: the time limit for this mission is 2 years. If you exceed the time limit, Diablo will complete the mission on his own, and his loyalty to you will drop to the lowest level. William glanced at the affinity between the two of them. It had just increased and now had 730 points. He patted the latter's shoulder and said, Go first. We'll talk about this later. Okay. Diablo clenched his fists and slowly left. Castellan Bernard of East Sea City, the past of the Diablo family? William narrowed his eyes. In his previous life, he had been to the East Sea metropolis, but he had not completed the mission of the Diablo family. In his previous life, Diablo had died in the war that destroyed the Black Lava Nation. According to the mission information provided by Diablo, his family must have been attacked by vampires. As for why Bernard, the Lord of the East Sea Castellan, didn't choose to take revenge and even let the Diablo family perish, it was because Bernard wasn't a half-elf at all. He was also a vampire. The immortality of a half-elf was just a disguise. One had to know. Although the blood race was a creature of the continent, they were not considered as dark creatures. To the humans, they were still terrifying creatures, because they fed on fresh blood. Although they could survive on any kind of blood, the blood race drank blood like how humans ate food. They could fill their stomachs with simple food, but wouldn't delicacies taste better? The delicacies of the blood race were not the blood of animals or magical beasts. They were human blood. The ranking of the vampire's food was dragon blood, elf blood, winged blood, human blood, and magical beast blood. It was a pity that the winged and elves were few in number and extremely powerful. Even if the blood race dared to attack them, they could only do it secretly. They were afraid of being destroyed. Therefore, they could only target the humans. Therefore, the blood race who were doing well would usually keep many humans as blood slaves. In short, the blood race was very particular when it came to food. They could even study clearly which parts of a person's blood tasted good and which parts didn't. As for the vampires who weren't doing well, they could only bite wild animals as food to satisfy their hunger. After William received the mission, he almost understood how the Diablo family was destroyed. It was very simple. The Diablo family had found out the truth of the matter. They were loyal to Bernard, a vampire. Although they might not have the intention to rebel, Bernard might not allow them to leave East Sea Metropolis. After all, although the Temple of Light did not attack the vampires, there were many blood race members among the high-ranking members of the Palace of Darkness. Both sides restrained themselves. But the blood race who went overboard were still the targets of the demon hunters, temple knights, priests, and even some rangers. Or maybe the Diablo family knew Bernard's identity a long time ago, but they participated in the dragon's blood essence incident. Then, the blood race of the Emerald Grand Duchy took revenge. William scratched his head. The blood race can't reproduce. They can only rely on the embrace to expand their population. Therefore, there are not many blood race members. Their strength and bloodline potential depend on how powerful the blood race member who gave the embrace is. Usually, a blood race member with legendary bloodline will become a vampire with epic bloodline after giving the embrace to a human. But every time the embrace is used, the blood race member will consume a lot of blood essence. Therefore, they rarely use the embrace unless they see a target that they really like or fancy. But the most fatal thing is that the bloodline potential of the vampires can be improved. As long as they devour other blood race members, they can slowly improve their bloodline potential and grow to a higher level. This is the key reason why the blood race has been fighting amongst themselves. William gradually understood the blood race. The destruction of the Diablo family must have been due to their participation in the internal war of the blood race. As for the real reason, William had to go to the East Sea metropolis to find out the truth. But the most likely reason was the blood dragon's blood essence incident. Otherwise, looking at the bloodline potential of Diablo, it would be clear that his family was extremely powerful. How could they have fallen so easily? This matter can't be rushed. I have to reach the Grandmaster level first. Otherwise, I have to be close to it. William was currently only at level 86. He still needed tens of millions of experience points to reach level 100. In the first two versions, the players could level up by one level in each version. But in the next version, the players could only level up by one level in at least two versions. And there was a huge dividing line between Advanced and Grandmaster. Oh, it was similar to the Battle Emperor and Battle Grandmaster. Pom, pom, pom. William heard another knock on the door. Come in. Sarimas walked in and grinned while rubbing his hands. Your Highness, do you think that the druid occupation needs to be expanded on a large scale? Oh, I'm afraid that if we exploit them too much, the little sheep will quit the game. What? Sarimas asked, puzzled. It's nothing. Go and spread the druid doctrine. I'll arrange it for you. William nodded nonchalantly. Anyway, he was going to fleece the sheep. It did not matter what occupation he used. As long as he had all the secret manuals, it was enough. William looked at the joyful Sarimas as he left. He suddenly thought of something. Wasn't Sarimas an archdruid? He was a Grandmaster mage. When William went to the East Sea metropolis, he could definitely let Sarimas tag along. After all, although Sarimas was a magician, after he transformed into a silver-backed monkey, he would be his super meat shield. When that time came, how many stinky bats could withstand him? Or rather, how many bats could he withstand? Or rather, how many bats could he withstand? For a moment, William had many ideas in his mind. He would go to the East Sea metropolis after some time. Sarimas also felt a chill down his spine. He knew that his proposal to expand the druid occupation would definitely make William think of him again. Chapter 248. It was the 6th month of version 2.0. There were more than 600,000 Chinese players in the southeastern region. Not only were there more and more new players, but the first batch of players also had 200,000 intermediate professionals. In an extremely realistic game world, there was a huge difference. When the players had power and influence, some of them would have the ambition to build a nation or a neutral camp. It was a pity that the places where they could build towns were either occupied by NPCs or in areas that lacked resources. At least in the southeastern region, there were no places with good resources that had not been developed. In other words, if they wanted to build a territory that could be developed in the long run, they had to fight for a place that belonged to NPCs or other races. Hence, some of the large guilds in the City of Dawn gradually shifted their attention to the neighboring Heavy Spear clan and the Flame clan, which was even further away. Actually, they had no choice. The City of Dawn continued to expand. Now, there were 10 districts, and each district had a population of 100,000. There were nearly 1 million NPCs, and nearly half of them were professionals. Among them, there were more than 20 advanced professionals, and there were also some hidden bosses. Not to mention the favorable impression that the players had of the City of Dawn. The powerful strength of the City of Dawn would not make the players want to turn their backs on the City of Dawn. Therefore, they set their sights on the Heavy Spear clan. They intended to kill the Heavy Spear clan and obtain some of the Heavy Spear clan's mineral veins. The players' intentions could not be hidden from Wei Ripper, who scrolled through the forum all day. It was a pity that William did not care about their thoughts and actions. He allowed the large guilds to test the Heavy Spear clan. He treated it as a form of entertainment, because in William's eyes, the sheep were a little arrogant. They did not want to eat grass and wanted to eat meat. The large guilds wanted to use the advantage of their resurrection to kill the Heavy Spear clan, which had a population of more than 100,000. This was a good and reasonable idea. It could even be said that they could do it. But the hearts of the people were not united. The Heavy Spear clan had 2 pale orcs with legendary bloodlines. Altaic and Alls had reached the advanced level during the early stages of the Darkness invasion. As advanced legendary bosses, they had sufficient strength to kill the players many times. But the players could not even break through their defense. If the players were not afraid of death, losing equipment, and losing experience points, the two melee legendary bosses would not be able to stop them. If the others rushed up, they could still kill all of the Heavy Spear clan, or even kill all of them, and then obtain control of the mine. But the key was how to organize it. Everyone had their own selfish motives. Large guilds would not have professional armies. Every player and every small group had a different goal. If Altaic and Alls chose to kill a guild's army, that guild would definitely be unhappy and might even withdraw. Or in other words, he couldn't deal with these two brothers. It was useless even if the players occupied the Heavy Spear tribe's territory. This was because the two high-grade orcs were determined to take revenge. As long as they guarded the players day and night, they could kill the players until they couldn't take care of themselves, of course. William could think of many things. The players understood as well. A few days ago, Chanli Joga had been chosen as a representative to seek William's help. He had no other requests. He only hoped that William could kill Altaic and Alls. But it was a pity. William chose to refuse. His favorable impression of Chanli Joga even decreased. Chanli Joga was so scared that he almost burst into tears, but William's refusal was not without reason. The City of Dawn was a beginner's village. It had to maintain a variety of missions. Among them, the orcs and dark creatures could not be completely killed. Otherwise, the novice players would run away to other places because there were no missions and no monsters to kill. It had to be known, with the release of the game version, the number of beginners' villages would gradually increase. By then, it would not only be limited to the City of Dawn. Some grand duchies and small duchies that had defeated the dark creatures and rebuilt their countries would also become beginners' villages. William wanted to ensure that the players would continue to join. He had to ensure that there were enough missions in the City of Dawn. He had to have a large enough territory and a strong enough influence. He also had to have convenient transportation. Therefore, he would not choose to help the players. Instead, he would allow them to seek death. Therefore, after the players had prepared for nearly 20 days and discussed numerous battle plans, they finally came to a conclusion. A war waged by the players had begun. The City of Dawn had gathered 130,000 intermediate professionals and 50,000 beginner professionals. There was a total of 180,000 soldiers and hundreds of guilds. Although Chu Liuqiu had been treated as a commander many times, he chose to refuse when someone approached him again. Therefore, that day, countless players did not follow any plans. They formed groups and charged towards the Heavy Spear tribe. The 12,000 elite soldiers of the Flame tribe suddenly charged from the flank and cut off the players' army in the middle. At the same time, a total of 8 advanced professionals appeared on the battlefield. They attacked the players' army without restraint. In less than 3 hours, tens of thousands of players returned to the city to revive. Tens of thousands of players were killed. They suffered heavy losses. Although they had also killed more than 30,000 orcs, they could no longer organize a second attack. Because they were players, not an army, under the premise of not having enough benefits, under the situation of not facing a desperate situation, under the situation of not being united against a common enemy, the players could not fight a proper war, unless the orcs were invaded by players from other countries. Otherwise, how could the leaders of the big guilds have the ambition to build a city, or the so-called promises and benefits that would only appear in the future? How could it be possible? This kind of war would not let the players fight to the death. After the war ended, many of the players who participated in the war were cursing on the forums. This doesn't even count as a quest. I want EXP, but I don't have gold coins. I lost 3 pieces of equipment for no reason. I don't know which idiot picked them up. I must be crazy to participate in this war. It's the fault of the big guilds. Don't say anything. Look at Chu Liuqiu. He knew that he would definitely lose this war. That's why he didn't become a commander. Otherwise, he would become the next world champion. Everyone, stop talking. Prince William doesn't intend to attack the Heavy Spear tribe. He must know that the Flame and Heavy Spear tribes have joined forces. Otherwise, given Prince William's petty character, how could he let the enemies stay by his side for so long? After the war, the players calmed down again. Some of them completed their missions, and some of them obtained equipment. Since they could not do anything now, they could only attempt to do something big in version 3.0. In short, if they did not do something stupid, they would not be players. However, after a few days, the City of Dawn made some amazing moves. First, the teleportation portal between the City of Dawn and Emerald Grand Duchy was officially connected. The toll was 1 gold coin. Second, the Dawn mercenary team officially entered Emerald Grand Duchy. The players had planned to change factions after version 3.0. However, the City of Dawn was one step ahead of them. The route to Emerald Grand Duchy was opened. The most important thing was, with the help of the Mercenary Guild, William was able to obtain tens of thousands of missions when the mercenary team entered Emerald Grand Duchy. The players were dazzled. They even felt that they did not have to change factions. The only pity was that the players' levels were too low. They could not accept many missions. Many players who wanted to enter a new world were itching to do so. Third, the Dawn Fleet was formed. The City of Dawn would gather brave warriors to explore the endless sea. Chapter 249. No. William drew a map for Captain Jack and asked him to lead the fleet to the southeast to search for an island filled with large mermen. Mission requirement: intermediate professional or above, including William. There were a total of 4 legendary bosses and 2 epic bosses. All of them were advanced. Boundless wealth might be in the direction we are heading. Mission reward: experience, gold coins, equipment. William would let him know what it meant to kick a boss in the boss's territory. The resources on this island were quite abundant. William did not want to make a big fuss about it, but there were some rare metal mines in the sea around the island. The professionals and commoners of the small dukedoms had all retreated to the dukedoms in the central continent. They were still in the process of counterattacking. Mission level: S, but after 1 or 2 versions when the Great Voyage game was in full swing, he could still pretend to be a pirate when this mission appeared. Mission reward: unknown. Even if the East Sea Metropolis was a dangerous place, even if the Lord of the East Sea Metropolis was 1 level higher than them. For a moment, the players were excited again. This was what it meant to be a killing. There were no more merchant ships in the archipelago continent. William recalled that the Nagas were an intelligent race with a human body and a snake's tail in the gods' world. They had been born in the mythological era, but they lived in the deep sea and were not known by ordinary people. Mission time limit: 2 to 6 months. Even though the Sloran dukedom had been destroyed, they still did not care about the chosen ones with low combat power. Mission level: S. Mission time limit: 6 months. After all, his uncle was the most reliable candidate. Let's go and register. It's probably another selection method. The players could not help but complain. The restricted missions of the City of Dawn had very rich rewards. Because of his act of stealing, the tens of island nations were in a chaotic war. When they faced the Darkness invasion, they suffered a crushing defeat. I have to say, this is a sad story. William was helpless. In this day and age, he could not even be a pirate. He did not dare to send warships to faraway places. He could only accept the outcome. The small Sloran dukedom was located in the west of the southeastern region. The distance between the two was not too far. Some adventurous players from the Black Lava dukedom went to participate in the war. Many adventurous players who loved the sea were excited. Prompt: the Lord of the City of Dawn has issued a new mission: endless exploration. This was equivalent to the Chinese players completing 2 S-rank main storyline quests in 1 version. Of course, the most important thing is that you can find the Naga's kingdom in the sea here. This warship did not become a pirate ship as William had imagined. Instead, it became a real warship called the Water Dragon. Oh my God, 15 battleships venturing into the endless ocean for an adventure. And it's even an S-rank mission. I feel that this side mission isn't any worse than the main mission. Tens of thousands of players from the City of Dawn had accepted this mission. They were going to Sloran dukedom to earn a fortune. There was no discussion on the forum about changing factions. The players headed west. Friendly reminder. The start of the voyage is full of unknowns and mysteries. The real reward is often the magical scenery you see. What is a mere experience reward? Now that most of the dark creatures in the southeastern region have been killed, players would have a very difficult time annihilating them. Regardless of whether it was for the dream of pretending to be pirates or to occupy the resources of unknown islands, the Dawn Fleet could not fall behind. Two of the epic warships had dozens of cannons and were extremely powerful. Their strength had reached the second tier of the legendary continent's fleet. Maximum number of mission members, 15,000. The skeleton of the water dragon had been made into an epic warship. The Dawn mercenary team has been hired by the Sloran King to help his people defeat the dark creatures and rebuild the homeland of the Sloran people on the ruins. William brought Burned Cinder, Diablo, Wales, Violent Dragon, and Alec to the East Sea metropolis to investigate. Even if William sent out his pirate ships, he would not be able to rob them. In other words, no matter what, I'm going. The fleet of the City of Dawn had raised its sails. They were going to recruit fearless warriors. But if he really angered William, it would be too late. William had underestimated the situation of the archipelago continent. The first mission was an S-rank mission. Mission details. In the endless ocean full of unknowns, where are the mysterious mermaids, Naga, and Sea Clan? If the City of Dawn continued to develop at this speed, they might not even need to change factions in version 3.0. Furthermore, the Naga were gentle and not warlike. If they could interact with them, they might be able to establish diplomatic relations with them and obtain the rare resources in the ocean. Since it's an S-rank mission, there must be a clear goal. Prince William did not reveal the mission information to us. Or rather, he does not understand the unknown territory. That's why the mission difficulty is so high. The players gradually discovered that Prince William was in the middle of the ocean. What was this called? The moment this mission appeared on the notice board, William posted a new mission on the notice board. Some of the Naga who lived close to the legendary continent could speak the common language of the legendary continent. Prompt. Many nations in the legendary continent have been occupied by dark creatures. As the only victor of the darkness invasion, the City of Dawn will spare no effort to help other nations that are in dire straits. The shipyards along the coast were spending money like crazy. The City of Dawn temporarily had 2 epic warships, 5 Grandmaster warships, and 8 advanced warships. Hence, ordinary players had a higher chance of being selected. We all know that there are countless resources in the ocean. Some small islands even have treasures left behind by pirates. Where are they? Prompt. The City of Dawn is the dawn of justice. Everything we do is to fight against the dark forces. Even though the City of Dawn had just entered the second tier, it meant that as long as the Dawn Fleet did not encounter powerful sea creatures or the main fleet of the kingdom, it would be safe. William gave this mission to Captain Jack and Lautner, who was traveling with him. But it was just an S-rank mission, and it had a limit on the number of participants. Would William take it seriously? Outside the southeastern region, many small nations were still fighting against each other. They were fighting against the darkness invasion. He wanted to let Lord Bernard of the East Sea metropolis understand one thing. 3 days later, mission restriction, none, but the mercenary teams of the Black Lava Nation players were not very famous. Even if they accepted the mission, there were not many rewards. But the restricted mission would usually choose players with good equipment and high levels. In addition, there were many magical beasts on this island. It was also a gathering place for the merfolk, ocean version. When the time came, it would bring a sense of novelty to the players. However, there were some dangerous quests that pro players and rich players might not participate in. Humans did not know of their existence, but the Naga knew about the humans, elves, orcs, and various wars on the continent. But the Dawn mercenary team was different. Chapter 250. The southeastern region was in the subtropical zone. The northern part of the southeastern region was considered a warm zone. Even though it was near the coastline, the temperature was not high. It was autumn, and the sky was filled with dark clouds. Lightning flashed, but there were no explosions. It was as though an autumn rain was about to break the tranquility. After William and his companions left the city of Dawn, it took them 5 days to reach the border of the East Sea metropolis. Behind them was the black lava dukedom, and in front of them was the nation of the vampires. At this moment, an obvious border appeared in front of them. It was not a border that could be seen with the naked eye, but an indescribable chill. William was not the only one who sensed it. The other 5 frowned. It seemed that the East Sea metropolis was not a neutral territory, but an ominous place. Boom! Thunder boomed. Torrential rain fell from the sky like a curtain of rain. William and his companions stepped into the territory of the East Sea metropolis. The autumn rain would last for an indeterminate amount of time. The 6 of them were dressed like rangers or demon hunters on a long journey. William was wearing a long black robe and a hood. The raindrops hit his body and made pitter-patter sounds. He looked up at the sky and then at the town 7 or 8 kilometers away. He coughed and said, "Let's go and take a look. If there are no accidents, there should be many vampires here. Everyone, be careful." The East Sea metropolis was different from his previous life. He had come here 2 years earlier. He needed to understand some things so that he could help Diablo take revenge. The vampires were very good at camouflage. The players could not see through them with their insight. Therefore, he had to understand how many vampires there were. In his previous life, the East Sea metropolis had started a secret war with the Emerald Grand Duchy. The number of vampires had been greatly reduced. "Is the rumor about vampires real?" Wales asked curiously. "It should be." Diablo nodded. But his childhood memories were not enough to be used as evidence. It could be a hallucination, so he did not say much. William grinned. He exhaled a mouthful of white gas in the chilly rain and said in a deep voice, "We call them vampires, and they call themselves the blood race. Usually, vampires are just like humans. It is difficult to distinguish their true identity. If there was anything special about them, it would be that their skin was too pale and bloodless. It was almost impossible to see their blood vessels. When they fought, some of the more powerful vampires could grow dragon-like wings. When they wanted to escape, they could even transform into small bats and escape. However, those characteristics only proved that they were difficult to deal with. But their most powerful technique is to control the blood in our bodies. Tyrannosaurus, who was also a tall and muscular man, gulped. He was over 2 meters tall, and among the 6 of them, he had the most HP. Wouldn't he be the unluckiest one then? He could not help but step forward and ask, "Control the blood in our bodies?" "No, it's not us. It's controlling your blood. This is the unique magic of vampires, or rather, it's the instinct of vampires. If you really meet a vampire and get your blood controlled, you must be prepared to cast a battle aura shield to suppress it. If you allow him to control your blood, no matter how thick your skin is, you will still die from blood loss." William glanced at the other 5 people. All of them were bosses. In the past, they had either been allies or opponents. But now, the city of Dawn was a big brother in the southeastern region. These people were also William's subordinates. They were considered a family. Now that they were going to face strange magical creatures like vampires, they had to be prepared. William glanced at these cowardly, legendary, and epic bosses. They were frightened by this. It was human nature to always be afraid of unknown creatures. The potential of their bloodlines was much stronger than most vampires. Some of the weaker vampires, even if they had high-level combat power, might not be able to control their blood. Oh, actually, he was also afraid of the unknown. But if he did not say it, no one would know that he was afraid. Why only control me? I'm strong and have more HP. Should I be controlled? Tyrannosaurus looked sad. The corners of William's mouth twitched. You don't have to worry too much. I have many light magic scrolls. Each of you can take 10 scrolls. If you really meet a vampire, you just have to crush the scrolls, and you won't be controlled for tens of seconds. That's good. Prince William, you should have said so earlier. Tyrannosaurus laughed. Then, he and the others took the magic scrolls that were tens of feet long. Half an hour later, William and his companions arrived near a small town. The guards at the city gate had already closed the gate. They were roasting a bonfire on the 8-meter-tall city wall. They calmly looked at the rangers outside. "Open the gate." Alec raised his head and shouted. A guard carried a longbow and walked reluctantly to the edge of the city wall in the heavy rain. He frowned and asked, "This is the territory of the East Sea Metropolis. Who are you?" "Demon hunters." William took out his lightning bow and shot at a tree that was 100 meters away. Whoosh! A bolt of lightning flashed across the dark space. At that moment, even the raindrops seemed to have stopped. Boom! The moment the 10-meter-tall tree came into contact with the arrow, the battle energy tore the tree into powder. The powder sank into the ground along with the rainwater. So powerful! Some of the guards in the town thought to themselves. But they were not worried that the demon hunters would cause trouble. There were many demon hunters who came to the East Sea Metropolis, but many had died. Over the years, there had been many sightings of vampires in the East Sea Metropolis. Indeed, many slaves and commoners had suddenly disappeared without a trace. The city lord had sent soldiers to encircle and annihilate the legendary vampires many times. He had even personally taken action. Unfortunately, the vampires could transform into bats and escape. The encirclement and interception were not of much use. In the end, the city lord could only find some demon hunters to deal with the vampires. But it was a pity that no matter how famous the demon hunters were, they did not return. Fortunately, the vampires did not attack many times. The number of commoners who died was not that exaggerated. The locals did not take it too seriously. After all, for hundreds of years, the locals had been facing the threat of death at all times, but many people were still alive and well, so they did not take it seriously. Of course, every time the sun was about to set, as long as it was within the territory of the East Sea Metropolis, they would hurriedly close the city gates and doors to prevent the appearance of vampires. The city gate guard went downstairs to open the city gate. He glanced at the 6 powerful people and said, "Welcome, 6 powerful demon hunters. You may enter the town, but please do not wander around. After all, this is the territory of Lord Bernard of the East Sea Metropolis." "That's not a problem. I wonder if there's a hotel. My subordinates are a little tired and want to find a place to rest." William smiled. A powerful person was a pass. This logic was applicable even in the empires. Therefore, there was no need for him to pretend to be weak. As long as he was stronger than these soldiers, they would give him sufficient respect. "Follow this path for 300 meters. There's a hotel there. But there are too few merchant groups that come to the East Sea Metropolis. The hotel does not earn much money, and there are not many decorations. Please don't mind." The guard smiled and welcomed them into the city. Then he watched them leave. Subsequently, with a creaking sound, the city gates slowly closed. The few guards on the city wall had an inexplicable smile on their faces. They looked at William as if they were looking at a dead man. The sky had darkened. It seemed even darker. This was a small town without any lights. Every household had their doors closed, and there was a strange aura everywhere. The autumn rain did not stop, and the weather was getting colder. The air that they exhaled had turned white. The roads of the town were not made of limestone. With the impact of the rain, the roads gradually became muddy. Fortunately, even though William had great power, he was not a high and mighty noble. He was a warrior who had experienced life and death. The rule of not riding a horse in the city existed everywhere. It was not William's territory, so there was no need to be so arrogant. Then, they led their horses and walked for a few hundred meters before they found the location of the hotel. Although the hotel door was closed, it was not completely closed. A trace of candlelight leaked out from the crack of the door. Alec pushed open the wooden door. Wind and rain entered the room, and the flames on the candles flickered. A fat middle-aged man was snoring on the table. He did not notice that someone had come. Pom, pom, pom. Violent Dragon punched the wooden door a few times. There was a loud sound. "Who is it?" The hotel boss woke up. He used the same posture as William to wipe his saliva. Then, he looked up at the 6 tall and strong men at the door. "Phew, I thought it was a vampire. I knew it. Vampires don't like to drink the blood of fat people. Gosh, is this why you are so fearless?" Burned Cinder did not speak along the way, but now he was a little annoyed. Logically speaking, vampires should be the same as humans. They should eat fat ducks. The middle-aged boss laughed without a care. He looked at William and the others and said, "You must be staying in the hotel. But there are only 4 rooms now. Some of you need to squeeze." Give me a room. They can stay however they want," William said without any hesitation. "Up to you. But it's better for 2 people to stay in 1 room. After all, you have heard the rumors about this place," the middle-aged boss said as he took the key. "Oh, right, 5 silver coins for a room. That's so unscrupulous. Here you go." The corners of Violent Dragon's mouth twitched. He did not care and threw 20 silver coins at the boss. How could such a lousy place cost 5 silver coins? He only needed 5 silver coins to stay in the Black Lava King city for a night and find a woman. The middle-aged shopkeeper diligently collected the silver coins and chewed on them one by one with his teeth. Then he chuckled and said, "It's all set by the liege. After all, the rumors of vampires are true, which is why many caravans are unwilling to come here. So, we should earn as much as we can. Are you also demon hunters? What good news do you have for us?" Burn Cinder took out a gold coin and flicked it between his fingers. The middle-aged boss rubbed his hands. "Pay first, then talk." "Here." Burn Cinder threw the gold coin over. William, who was about to go upstairs with the key, stopped in his tracks. He wanted to hear what the fat man had to say. Then, the middle-aged boss nervously closed the door of the hotel. He looked at them as if they were dead and said, "You can stay together. Leave this place tomorrow and go to the nearest Black Lava Dukedom. Since 18 years ago, none of the demon hunters who came here have left alive." Bang! The wooden door was blown open by the strong wind again. The middle-aged boss was so scared that the fat on his body trembled. When he closed the door, he vaguely saw a small bat hanging upside down on a big tree. Its scarlet eyes were faintly discernible,